Thank you. Going to call the Committee of the Whole Planning Administration meeting to order. Sorry about the late start. We had a long in-camera meeting that went over. The meeting of the Committee of the Whole Planning Administration is now called to order. I'd ask that you to rise as you're able for the reading of the invocation. As we come together today, recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails, where justice rules. We acknowledge the rich history of this land, which includes the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Today, there are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who live or work in the city. The intent of the acknowledgement is to recognize our responsibility to use and take care of these lands responsibly and respectfully while remembering generations past and considering the generations yet to come. We respect and seek to continue and promote the long-standing relationship with the area's First Nations, the Six Nations of the Grand River First Nations, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Indigenous peoples who reside within the city of Brantford. Let us also not forget those who have served our community and who are no longer with us, that we can continue to do their work in their memory. Amen. Mr. Clerk, has the roll call been taken?
Yes, it's been taken.
Any members of the committee, is there any members of the committee that conflict with declaration of interest? Seeing none. Thank you. Separation items for consideration. Councilor Van Tilburg.
7.1.3.
Any others? Okay, I think we have one that's automatically separated. 7.1.1 is automatically separated because we have a delegation. Okay. Councilor Sullivan, can you please move the motion to approve all items for consideration and consent 7.1 and 7.2 not separated for discussion?
As soon as it comes up. Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councilor Sicoli, that all items consideration consent 7.1 and 7.2 not separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll call the vote on those that have been separated.
And all the items that are subject to the vote are item 7.1.2, recommendations for public art in Jubilee Terrace Park, and 7.2.1, the minutes. And all items not separated, carried on a recorded vote of 10-1. All those voting in favor are Councilor Sullivan, Slats, McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councilor Martin.
Thank you. There are no statutory public hearings for today's meetings. We do have a delegation. There's one delegation on tonight's agenda. But before hearing from the delegation, I'd like to remind those in the meeting today that the following rules of decorum as set forth the city procedural bylaw to apply. And this is standard. We read this at every meeting. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made to this council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of this meeting. So I would like to invite Heather Vanier, our Community Resource Services, speaking on 7.1. I'd like to ask Heather to come forward, speak to item 7.11. Welcome to council once again, Heather. You got 10 minutes inclusive of question.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. September is Hunger Action Month, so it's appropriate that Council is receiving the Food Security Community Action Plan today. Also today, Food Banks Canada released their poverty report card, a snapshot for action to address poverty in Canada. Canada overall received a D for their efforts. In general, the report indicates that low-income households are spending more on food and housing, have reduced access to healthcare, and that government support is not enough to meet basic needs. As you know, these same issues affect citizens of Brantford Brant. And as you know, 1 in 6 households in our community are considered food insecure, and 1 in 10 individuals have used the services of the Brantford Food Bank. I want to thank Council for passing the declaration of food insecurity emergency earlier this year. And I want to thank members of the Brant Food Systems Coalition and the City of Brantford staff for their work on the development of the Food Security Community Action Plan. In 20 years on this job, I wasn't sure we'd ever get here, a point where food security is being taken as a serious emergency in our community. After 40 years, the food bank is providing emergency food to our community, and it is only now that we have recognized we have a crisis, that hunger must be taken as a serious problem, and that we need to find ways to address it. We see a number of challenges being faced by our organization and food programs in our community. Increased demand. We know that Ontario Works caseloads and unemployment are expected to grow, and with that, we can only expect that our client numbers will grow as well. Increasing challenges to food producers and manufacturers. With increased operational costs, food manufacturers are working hard to maintain profit margins, and with that, we've seen a reduction in donations from some food and grocery producers. Increased food costs. Wholesale costs have increased, and we are purchasing more food than ever before. The increased need for monetary and food donations continues to grow, and with an expected increase in demand, we will need more funds and food to keep the food flowing in our community. Capacity challenges. There's not enough space, manpower concerns, and increasing operating expenses stifle our ability to continue to meet the growing need. As outlined in the Community Action Plan, increased collaboration will be vital to its success. It will be extremely important for our community to work together with city staff and local food programs and council to address poverty and local food insecurity. Equally, collaboration between food programs, finding innovative ways we can work together to increase food sharing across our network and ensuring mutual clients are receiving enough support will also be key. Encouraging more local corporate partnerships will also help. Through our membership with Food Banks Canada and Feed Ontario, we benefit from national and provincial corporate donation agreements with food manufacturers, producers, and grocery stores. We also have some great partnerships with local food producers and manufacturers. However, if we hope to build additional relationships and increase the amount of food support that we receive we need to ensure we have adequate finances to meet those additional space and manpower requirements. Community education is also important. We need to highlight our local food system for everyone in our community. We need to encourage the community to learn about our local food charter and encourage community participation in food activities like cooking classes and gardening and food preservation. But breaking down the myths will also be vital. We have many generous people in our community, but we also have many who do not have a real understanding of how easily individuals and families can slip into poverty through no fault of their own and how difficult it is to get out of. We need to have a better understanding of the challenges low-income households face each day, the challenges of making ends meet, the stress of trying to decide whether to pay the rent or feed their children. The fear of losing their housing and mounting expenses is very, very real, particularly for those on social assistance or facing job loss. As a community, we need to ensure that planning and strategic development always considers the impact of low-income individuals. Their voices and situations need to be heard and considered, and we need to be innovative in our planning and development efforts. Importantly, this has been highlighted in our Community Action Plan, and it must be recognized that food insecurity is not a food problem. It is an income problem. All the cooking classes in the world will not help if they don't have food to cook. Hunger does not stem from local food shortages, the inability to cook, or from a lack of nutritional education. It comes from a lack of money in individual households. It comes from not having enough money at the end of the month, whether you're working or on social assistance, to pay for your housing costs and for your groceries. This action plan calls for advocacy for system and policy changes. It calls for advocating all levels of government to improve the financial position of low-income households. And to do that, we must see an increase in social assistance rates. As I have said before, with almost 50% of food bank clients indicating Ontario Works and ODSP as their primary source of income, and if the Ontario government would increase those rates to an acceptable level that covers realistic housing and food costs, food bank use would drop by half. This action plan asks municipalities to work together to advocate for increased household income supports and increased funding to nonprofits. To be clear, there is no regular municipal, provincial, or federal government funding received by food banks, no ongoing monthly payments received as direct funding to provide emergency food programs. These organizations are charities, and they are working hard to address a huge problem with whatever food and financial donations the community can give. We call on you, our local city council, to work with us at the food bank to take the lead. Many more communities across Ontario have now declared food insecurity declarations and are creating poverty and food security action plans. Our organization and I personally call on you to continue to take these actions seriously. Work with us, call the meetings, have the discussions, and advocate for the most vulnerable in all communities to receive enough for housing, enough for health, enough for their expenses, and enough for food. Thank you for allowing me to present this evening.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you for what you do. Please stay there and see if the members of council have any questions. Mayor Davis.
First of all, Heather, thank you very much for what you and your group have done in this community now for decades. I certainly agree with you that the rates in respect of OW and ODSP, it's shocking. They have been increased since 2018. But my question to you is, so when we have monies that are available that we can look into as a city, putting more money or more resources into various food programs, do you think we should concentrate on a program like the Brantford Food Bank where you're distributing groceries, or what percentage should be allocated to programs such as, Soup for the Soul, which are providing meals for people in particular living on the street? So is there any way to coordinate all of that? And how do you suggest, what's your advice to us in terms of how to deal with that?
I would say yes. I think definitely there's a way to coordinate it. I think that, even as organizations, we don't have a really good understanding of what their operational needs are versus what our operational needs are. But I think all programs right now are vitally important. And the reason I say that is, as a food bank right now, we're providing, maybe a 4 to 5 day supply of food. Well, I always go back to what happens on the 6th day, right? So, unless we can provide, a full month of food, I think all of these programs are going to be very vital. Also, you have to look at the need, right? Like each individual household is going to have very unique needs. Some individuals need that meal on the run, on the go. Others, have the facilities to be able to cook. So I would say more research needs to be done on that. Like, I don't want to say a percentage, but what I would say is I think we could work together better to share information to be able to give you some of those answers, Kevin.
As far as the Brantford Food Bank is concerned, how much additional money or resources do you think you need to meet the need that's there?
Our current budget is about just over $600,000 a year. For us to continue to purchase, because we are purchasing more food, also to increase our manpower and staffing. I I would say easily another couple $100,000 a year to help us be able to, meet the need and really be able to give people what they need. Because I think that's always been our challenge. In the years that I've worked, the challenge is always, how do we give people enough? How do we give them enough to really be able to meet the needs that they have? And that is getting worse because there's less and less money for them to spend on groceries. When I presented around the food security declaration, I talked about, Ontario Works, a single individual receiving $800. There's no way they're paying rent and buying groceries, none. So we want to be able to provide them more.
Thank you, Heather. That's our 10 minutes. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate the work you do in the community. So such vital work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Samwell, please read the motion to place all separate items for consideration and consent not previously voted on the floor and state your seconder.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg, that all items for consent and consideration, 7.2 and 7.1, 7.2, separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
We don't vote on that yet. Thank you. Next item is the one we just spoke about, 7.1.1, speakers to 7.1.1. Councilor Samwell.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Earlier this year, I brought forward a motion to declare a food insecurity emergency in the city, and we didn't take that decision lightly. The data and the daily realities faced by so many in our community made it clear that it is urgent and a growing crisis. Tonight, I want to express my gratitude for the work that has gone into this report before us. What we have is more than just a plan, it's a shared roadmap grounded in evidence and lived experience that reminds us that food insecurity is not about food, it's about income. The report is clear. Food insecurity is the result of inadequate income, not the absence of food itself. That's the hard truth, and it must guide our actions, especially when we continue to see rising costs, low wages that leave people behind, and income supports that just simply haven't kept up with the realities of today. What I'm most excited to see in this action plan is the commitment to advocacy and systemic solutions, not just stopgaps. But real change requires shifting of policy, not just expanding of programs. This means calling on upper levels of government to raise social assistance rates, invest in school nutrition programs, improve affordable housing, and explore bold ideas like a guaranteed livable basic income. We can't solve this crisis alone as a municipality, but we can lead by example. This plan sets the stage for that. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from the plan itself. So first, the long-term plan to develop a food strategy supported by formal governance structure. This will define clear roles, shared responsibilities, and measurable deliverables, ensuring ongoing accountability and coordination and momentum. Second, the integration of food security into our 2027 official plan update, recognizing the role of planning in policy in ensuring access to food, space for community gardens, grocery retail, and other food infrastructure. And third, the renewed look at the Community Food Hub feasibility study and building on the work already started by the Brant Food Systems Coalition in our community. This is an opportunity to create an innovative community-driven space where people can come together around food, learning, growing, and collaboration. This work reflects what many in the food movement have said for years. We can't food bank our way out of food insecurity. We need to coordinate action, equitable policy, and upstream solutions. I also want to thank the many residents, community leaders, and advocates and organizations who have contributed to this report and continue to do this work every day. The strength of this plan lies within the foundation, rooted in real experience and shared purpose. Endorsing this plan is just the beginning, and what matters most is what we do next with urgency, commitment, and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further speakers? Mayor Davis, you have the floor.
Yeah, first I want to thank Councillor Manny Samwell for bringing this forward several months ago. I think it's a very important issue, and it's critically important for many in our community. And thank you for bringing it to our attention focus. So, question I have for staff: In your report, you've listed various programs that we fund in part, and I think probably through some of the casino proceeds. So I believe Aaron. And we have here, for example, the food bank, Grant Food for Thought, Soup for Soul. One program I didn't see in here is the Blessing Center. I understand they do daily suppers. So why are they not in here?
Yeah, through the chair. So what table one in the report represents is annualized funding, either through our social services group or previous council approved annualized funding to some programs. We also provide funding to a number of food programs through our city grants program. So I believe the total, and we'll bring forward a fulsome city grants report next month, so we'll provide some more details than just this. But just a preliminary look at that report, we provided about 91,000 in additional dollars through our city grants program to organizations that either we're doing fully food program or incorporating food into the programs that we're delivering. So annually, we provide about $155,000 to food programs, and then this past year, another 91,000 to the city grants program.
And would you be able to tell us what percentage of what we contribute to these various organizations, what percentage goes to actual food, raw material, what percentage or dollar amount goes to admin, and what would go to things like rent?
Yeah, through the chair. So it would be variable depending on the program. So if it's annualized approved funding through council, what we do ask for is a preliminary budget. What we find in those budgets, it's let's say we're contributing $30,000 for Soup for the Soul for round figures. Their total program amount would be about $112,000. So what we ask for is not to get a breakdown of how our money is used. We ask for outcomes and targets based on our funding. So what we ask is a very kind of low barrier, easy application to say, we're requesting this money again this year. And what we will contribute to the city in return is this number of meals. How they use that and what business practices they use to actualize those meals, we're not prescriptive about that. So I don't have an answer.
Well, do they provide you with the information as to like they would say to the United Way if they're getting United Way funding? The percentage that applies to admin, the percent to rent, the percentage to actual buying raw materials.
So
On a gross basis.
So through the chair, we can look at enhancing that process as we go. Currently, what we ask for is quarterly or, depending on the program, monthly reports that talk about the number of meals they're providing, but not necessarily a breakdown of how that money was used for what particular budget line.
So can you tell us in a snapshot, how much are we using in total from casino proceeds that goes towards various food programs?
So this year, there'd be that $155,000 in annualized funding, $85,000 to Grant Food for Thought, 15 to the food bank, about 34 to Soup for the Soul, 18 to Grace Anglican, 3,500 to Salvation Army. And then because city grants also comes from casino funds, that 91,000 is coming from casino as well. So my quick math here would be about $250,000.
All right. And how much goes into the public art reserve from casino proceeds?
Through the chair, I can provide a member of council. I don't have that information offhand. You say the community gardens?
No, public art, the public art reserve.
Oh, public art. I'll get that information for you.
Okay. And what the balance is in that public art reserve. Can you be able to get that to us by council?
Through the chair, absolutely we can.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Martin, you're next on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a report out recently that said that the average family pays 42% of their income in taxes. And that's putting a lot of pressure on families. It's making it harder for families to donate to the food bank. And it's only going to get worse as long as the federal government keeps running large and increasing deficits, because the deficit is just a future tax increase. So taxes are going to go up even more. It's going to put more pressure on families, and it's going to make it harder for families to donate to food banks. And the other issue is carbon taxes. They took off the consumer-facing carbon tax, but there's still the commercial carbon tax. So taxes
Councilor
are,
Martin?
Yeah.
Will you speak to the issue on the floor, the resolution on the floor?
yes,
Rachel.
carbon taxes affect food prices. They were complaining about the cost of food in grocery stores. Part of that is carbon taxes. The tax on a refinery increases the cost of gasoline and diesel. Everything in the grocery store was delivered by a truck. So carbon taxes increase food costs. Same with the clean fuel standard, which is the other carbon tax. That increases the cost of diesel. That increases the cost of shipping food from the farmer to the
Councilor
producer,
Martin,
from the producer to the
carbon tax
grocery
is not
store.
Part of the presentation or in the report, so please speak to the report.
I'm talking about the price of food at grocery stores. That's in the report. Part of the cost is carbon taxes.
That's not in the report.
Well, I'm talking about the cost of food in grocery store. I mean, if you don't agree with me, that's your issue. But it's, and as long as the federal government keeps charging these carbon taxes, the carbon tax on the fertilizer production increases cost to the farmer, which increases cost of the groceries at the grocery store. So we need some of these damaging policies reversed by the federal government. Until they do, this situation is going to get worse. Period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else wish to speak to the item on the floor? Councilor Van Tilburg, did I see your hand up?
Yes, you did. Probably one of the more controversial, yet non-controversial thing Councilor Stanwell mentioned was that we can't food bank ourselves out of this. The food bank has done a wonderful job, decade after decade after decade. And yet what they're saying is the system is breaking. It's overloading. It's what the report's saying, and that something has to be done. I think we've all witnessed, especially people that have rented for a significant period of time and were able to afford those rents. The rents have gone out of control. They're completely out of range for most people, and people have to keep a roof over their head. So they will try and do whatever they can to keep the roof over their head. Sometimes that comes to the point where they can only even pay partial of their rent. But one thing that they're definitely struggling for is food, which is why they're going to food bank. Since we took off rent caps, everyone said that would never affect those people that are in their long-term rental units. Well, we know different. The evidence shows different, regardless of what the laws and the rules are. The other thing is that, if you look at what rents cost and your minimum wage and your food costs, you'd be a working person and you're not going to make ends meet. And then we have people that are marginalized. And, you look at those, our welfare rates and our ODSP rates for somebody trying to rent and have food, it's not there. You're a senior citizen and you've retired and there's been inflation and you've got a limited fixed income, it's not there. So everything that's mentioned in this report are directions that can make it better for people. So they're never in a position to use a food bank because that's what we actually want to attain. Heather from the food bank is like the canary in the coal mine. This is too much. He just said she has a budget of $500,000. Basically needs another 33% more just to get by. Could you imagine if you're saying I want a 33% raise, or I want to raise the your property tax 33%, but that's how much people are short. That's how much every person in their house is trying to use a food bank getting by. That's how short they are, and that's how short the food bank is to supply them. This when somebody's saying that we're in a crisis, we're actually in a crisis. It's not a misnomer. It's not trying to mislead anybody or hype it up. We see this around us, and I think we all witness this. And we kind of have that feeling that with the economic situation that it is right now, a year or two, it could get even any worse. The people that you wouldn't expect that may have to access the food bank, people have never done it. They don't realize how close they are to being in a vulnerable position. Until you feel it, you don't know.
Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg. Next, I have Councilor McCurry, and I apologize for missing you the first time.
No need to apologize, Mr. Chair. I'm quite happy to go after Councilor Van Tilburg. He often gives me an idea or two to speak to. Well, of course, federal government, provincial government, municipal government, and like so many things we see failing in our society, everything comes downhill, not only due to gravity, but due to the power wielded by the relative levels of government. Federal government, where does their money go? That's a good question. Provincial government, where does their money go? They've got pensions now. But folks at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale have seen no benefit. And it's not, the pressures are both ends. Folks on ODSP and folks on OW don't have enough money to get through the end of the month. They can't afford the rent, the food. You just can't do it on those rates. The other end of the spectrum, you've got, as Councillor Martin alluded to, you've got these inflationary pressures, which are largely under control of the federal government. What they do is they tend to raise the bar with respect to disposable income. So folks who could have spent, I don't know what you spend on roast beef now. I think it's gone up about 15% in the last year. I know that average working families can't afford to take their kids to McDonald's anymore because people are having to make the choices between heating and eating, between driving to work and feeding their kids dessert. And it's a damn shame, quite frankly, that this country, one of the richest countries in the world in terms of productivity at one time, in terms of natural resources, in terms of wealth, is in a position here tonight where we're talking about people that don't get enough to eat in a day. Folks can't afford to feed their kids. Their kids have to get fed at school. As I said, this is just a damn shame, Mr. Chair. And here it is on the municipal taxpayer again. Anyway, Mr. Chair, I've got two amendments to introduce. Would you feel the time would be appropriate for that?
Thank you. Any further speakers? I just had one comment about the report. I know myself, and I hope most people listening, and I hope the expositor would put this out there, that I make a monthly contribution every month to the food banks, automatic, comes out of the bank and goes to the food bank automatically. And if more people would do that, it'd be very helpful for the food bank to some stable incomes from it. I'm putting the challenge out there to every person in Brantford. Make a monthly contribution to the food bank, make it automatic withdrawal out of your bank account to the food bank. That's my comment. Councilor McCurry, you said amendment.
Sure, thank you. Seconded by Councilor Martin. This is an amendment to 3.0 to add a clause D, to give staff direction to provide dollar values for the items listed in table 1 and to seek out annual reports itemized from recipient organizations. And that relates to what we've seen in terms of the organizations the City of Brantford funds, so we can understand how much we spend and where the heck it goes and how efficient that money is spent.
Moved by yourself, second. Speakers? You want to speak? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, I think this is a very good amendment. I fully support it. You can't manage what you don't measure. So without this information, we don't know how effective the money we're giving these organizations is. And so I think this will be a big benefit for the municipality going forward to evaluate where the money is most effective. And we might have to change some of the allotments that go to some of these organizations if we don't feel that it's being managed properly, and give it to an organization that's managing things better so that we get a bigger bang for our buck.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any further speakers? Call the vote on the amendment.
Thank you. The amendment carried on a recorded vote of 10-1. All those voting in favor are Councillor Sullivan, McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Secoli.
Councilor McCurry, you said a couple of amendments. Do you have another one?
Indeed, I have, excuse me, Mr. Chair, same seconder, Councillor Martin. This is an amendment to item 9.5 of the report, and add action 1.7 to that list that's before us. So there's 1 through 16, this is 1.7, and reads as follows. Advocate to the governments of Ontario and Canada to take direct action against food insecurity by rescinding or reducing policies and programs that A, increase inflation, and B, increase costs to young and low income Canadian families. Mr. Chair, and that's the second part of the equation, is to begin to take less money from folks who earn a living, as well as endowing folks who cannot earn a living with the benefits of society's contribution.
Just that's an amendment to a staff report How is that different from what it says advocate to the government of Ontario and Canada, government of Canada take direct action against food insecurity by implementing policies and programs that improve the financial conditions of low income? How is that different?
The difference because it's the inverse, Mr. Chair. The item you're suggesting is action that they would take to reduce, which item are you on, Mr. Chair? I'll try and speak to it directly.
You're talking about item 1.1 talks about that in the advocacy system policy. So I'm going to rule that your motion is different than what is the same as what's already here, and it's not necessary. So I'm going to rule it out of order.
Give me a moment to call this up and reply to you, Mr. Chair. Because my IT has just gone south.
I'm just saying what you've said is in the report already.
No, it's, Mr. Chair, what you're citing is by implementing policies and programs that improve the financial conditions of low-income households and reduce reliance on nonprofits. What my amendment does is it asks them to take action to reduce or rescind policies which create inflation and which have a negative impact on low-income and young families. So I respectfully, Mr. Chair, I think you've misread what I said, and it should be ruled in order.
Yeah, okay, I ruled it out of order.
With respect, I would challenge, Mr. Chair, with respect.
Do we have a seconder for the challenge? Councillor Van Tilburg? Okay, thank you. So we are voting on sustaining the ruling of the chair.
So which vote means which?
So the vote that we're voting on right now is sustaining the ruling of the chair. The chair is ruling the amendment out of order. Yes, agrees with the chair. Okay, and that lost on a recorded vote of 2-8. All those voting in favor, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Carpenter, those opposed, Councillor Sullivan, Slats, McCurry, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Martin, Caputo, and Mayor Davis.
There's amendments on the floor. Anyone wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hunt.
Through you, so if I'm to understand this correctly, this is an amendment to a staff report, and we are in the main motion directing staff. So I want to be clear, or is this amendment directing staff to advocate the government of Ontario and Canada? And if so, I have a concern with that.
The amendment is changing the staff report.
Okay, so through you, perhaps. Oh, Aaron's still there. Sorry, I was looking at the back room for you. Your interpretation of the amendment, would that be that staff would be advocating?
To the chair, and I'm prepared to be corrected if wrong. I believe the amendment is to add that as an additional action to the action plan.
And then it's the staff that is implementing the action plan.
So through the chair, the next steps for the whole thing here is to bring the community back together, talk about a more formal implementation plan, who does what are the deliverables. So because that would now be on the action plan, as part of the advocacy and the voice that rises up from this plan, that'd be an additional thing to advocate for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Okay, speaking further to it, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was already in the plan was talking about increasing the income to low-income Canadians. What this amendment does is ask them to do things like take the carbon tax off and reduce the huge and increasing deficits to curb inflation so that food prices don't keep going up 10, 15, 20% for some items. So this is, it goes hand in hand with what's already in the report. It's not a duplication of it. It's looking at it from the other end, looking at the cost of food in the grocery store by changing some of the government policies that are detrimental to food inflation, as well as inflation in general with some of their policies. So we need to have this advocacy as well. It goes hand in hand with what's already in the report, but it's necessary to look at both ends of the whole food inflation and cost equation.
Thank you, Councilor. Further speakers, second time, Councilor McCurry?
Your math is pretty good tonight, Mr. Chair. In its simplest terms, what it really is asking, it's asking governments to take a good long look at what the heck they do and to consider that allowing people to have a decent meal 3 times a day, it should be a priority perhaps over some of the things that are done by levels of government now that I'm pretty sure folks who go to bed hungry would seem to think might be able to take a step back in terms of the government's priority list.
Thank you, Councilor. Further speakers? Okay, before I call the vote, I just say, I thought the carbon tax was off. I didn't know it was back on. I guess that's news to me. Okay, call the vote.
And that amendment carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. All those voting in favor are Councillor Sullivan, Celeste, McCurry, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Secoli, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Hunt.
Okay, thank you. Speaker to the motion as amended. Councilor Celeste.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think we should leave this item without saying thank you to Heather and the hundreds of volunteers across the community that go out and volunteer. You're working under really bad conditions. You're meeting people at their worst, and you're dealing with it every day. And it's got to be wearing and it's got to be tough. And to try and keep your volunteers motivated has got to be a challenge. And you do it every day and you do it very well. So for myself, and I'm sure on behalf of the city, thank you very much for all you do. And please pass that along to all your volunteers and workers that go along with you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr. Chair.
Fox. I have nobody else on the list, so I'm going to call the question.
Item 7.1.1 carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. All those voting in favor are Councillor Sullivan, Celeste, McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Secoli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Next on our list was 7.1.3, and I think it was Councilor Van Tilburg. You wanted to speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. This is the September report on the Working Group of Trade and Procurement. And the reason that this report comes to us is because of the direct actions that the United States has taken against specific industries in Canada in a targeted way. And it's it's deliberately designed to affect us negatively. A number of the factors in this report I found in this recent one concerning have some more localized data. There's a saying that a downturn you don't feel unless it affects you. And so, in this labor market report, you've got the response from the steel sectors, the aluminum sectors in particular. There was some response from the auto sectors. And it's all very interesting information on that the auto sector feels a little more comfortable. But I can attest, I know why there's 93% of those in the steel sector that are very concerned and 63% that know how it's negatively affecting their business, including and resulting in closures and layoffs. Having been part of a recent plant closure directly because of those tariffs, I'm well aware of that effect. So I wasn't aware of our aluminum capacity in Brantford and seeing that we have lost one plant that is amalgamated. We're seeing an effect in the months heading up into the months of August of what those tariffs are doing. And at this point in time, those tariffs are only targeting certain sectors. So you should be aware that if this ever grows to other sectors, this will be very, very dangerous for Canadians and particularly for the city of Brantford. One of the main anecdotes I see in there is that it's because of lost contracts. So that means you no longer have a customer. Because as they say in the States, it's the importer that pays the tariffs. And if the importer says, no, I got to find somewhere else, you're out of the game and you're not producing. So that's had a direct effect on us. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that we've rebuilt the industrial directory. That used to be the Bible of Brantford for the longest time, and it diminished during COVID. you've got some anecdotes from the businesses that you have addressed about how it's affecting them. And I was wondering, in those anecdotes, have they went as far as to say not just what's affecting them, but have they asked if they need any assistance from the city, or if there's direction from the city that can help them, or if there's city contacts with the municipal and federal governments, or if we can aid them in any way? Have they broached those kind of questions in the anecdotes versus just saying, yeah, this is affecting me bad, it's gonna affect, 30% of my export market here?
There's staff that can, Joe? And then I'll put you down for a second speaking opportunity if you wish. After he answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Councillor Van Tilburg. We have been doing a more formalized, specific survey of the auto sector, steel, aluminum, and we have heard mixed feelings, mixed emotions with supply chain and potential layoffs. And as of next week, we have our first meeting with an industrial automotive plant here in the city, where we're going to discuss in more detail what needs they may or may not be looking towards or for from the city and elsewhere.
Would you like to be put down for a second time, Council Petrovic?
If my time's up, then certainly put me on for a second time.
Further speakers? Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another way of saying what Councilor Van Tilburg did at the start is, when your neighbor loses their job, it's a recession. When you lose your job, it's a depression. So it's something to keep in mind in these times when, unfortunately, many people are losing their jobs because steel production and aluminum production is way down because of the tariffs. And during the election, we heard the Prime Minister say that he was the man to deal with Trump. He was going in with elbows up. Once the election was over, his elbows went down so fast, it looked like he was doing the chicken dance. Thank you.
If we could try and keep our conversation nonpartisan, I would appreciate it. I got Councillor McCurry, you're next, and then Van Tilburg, and then Mayor.
Well, that's hard to follow. Through you to staff, Chair. There's reference in the report to hiring a consultant, a Canadian-based consultant. I wonder if you might elaborate a bit on that, Joe, for us, please.
Absolutely, through the chair. So through the previous update of the working group on trade and tariff, there was council direction to utilize some of the Canada Can Export grant funding that was provided to the city with a matching from the city to conduct and finalize a foreign direct investment strategy through a consultant based out of Montreal and Quebec.
Do you recollect the name of the consultant, Joe?
FDI Research.
FDI Research. And so we contributed half to the budget.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, we would have contributed.
Do you recollect what our expense was and what account it came from?
I believe it is in terms of the account, I believe it's a capital project account. And the total for the final issuance of the report itself would have been half. So the city's portion would have been in and around $5,000. The total for the report was 10.
That would be money well spent, in your opinion, right?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. Can you advise whether we've had much interaction with the Chamber of Commerce Brantford Grant with respect to our process in terms of our working group on trade?
Through the chair to Councilor McCreary, as you may be aware, there has been some recent changes to the leadership there at the chamber, but we are working with Mr. Prang regarding the industrial impacts that we're seeing and the potential for working together on other projects as well.
And are they keeping you apprised of the demise of certain businesses in town as a result of the tariff problems?
Through the chair, there's a good working balance and collaboration with the chamber. So yes, they are.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Curry. Council Van Tiber, Mayor Davis for a first time, then I'll go back to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I'd like to speak to this because this was a major initiative that we began earlier this year in response to President Trump, and it becoming very clear at the beginning of the year what exactly he was going to be doing in respect to trade and economic relationship with Canada. And so this was something that myself and senior staff decided early in February before the original tariffs were announced. This was something we had to get a jump on. And to begin with, the group has focused, and I meet regularly with the group, we focused on what is the impact likely to be on local industry and what is it actually? And you're seeing that as some of the surveys have been done. And Councilor Van Tilburg's absolutely right. Anyone that's in respect to metals or iron or aluminum or uses that in their production process that's come from a Canadian supplier, it's a very difficult situation. But we're shifting from just simply being reactive and trying to determine what the impact has been and will be in our community. And part of that as well is supporting those industries as best we can. It's shifting to a more aggressive strategy to attracting new business to Brantford, because we know within 2 to 3 years, we hope to have a very large industrial park opening to the northwest. And we might as well start working now in attracting industry, new jobs, new growth, new prosperity. And so it's rather than being reactive, we want to be a lot more progressive. And you're going to see various initiatives roll out in the fall, fortunately funded in part by the grant that we received from the federal government earlier this year. So I can tell you one of the things that staff have done, not only as an industrial directory, which I agree with the Council Van Tilburg, always important to update that, but also it's including and developing, tips and prospects for businesses outside of Brantford, outside of elsewhere in the province, but also national and European and Southeast Asia that we might consider to mount an aggressive marketing campaign. So I think there's more good news to come out of this excellent group working with inside City Hall, led by Mr. Muto, and also working with some of our outside partners and stakeholders. And as I said, not just being reactive, but we want to be proactive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Van Tiber.
Thank you, Chair. I've lived in the city a long time and I've seen the ups and downs and the booms and busts. But I got to tell you that, in the last number of years, I had never seen our unemployment rates so low. We were actually doing incredibly well. And when we had even to this year, we had a January unemployment rate of 5%, which was 2.7% under the national average. I mean, for a city like us, that's amazing. And we also have a lot of new growth, a lot of new investment, a lot of new industries coming in. In fact, you go just before Trump, and I would say Brantford was so well positioned for the markets in the new economy. This was something else. So when we go 8 months later, we're looking at 9.5. We just jumped 2 points higher than the national average almost. That's not a good thing. And that's just with a couple sectors targeted. Now, something that has to be of interest as well is that you have to take each statistic from the source that's using it and go by that statistic alone. Don't start messing up your statistics where you can get confused. The other statistic says that the labor force increased in size by 9,500, employment increased by 4,800, but the number of unemployed increased by 4,800. So I'm just going to ask this question to verify, because I'm not the source of this data, is that we have this transition and there is more people joining the labor force? Is that why we have this number? That it's not just layoff oriented?
Through the chair to Councillor Van Tilburg, your assessment is correct.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg, for that. Councilor McCurry, you're next. Curry, second time.
Chair, thank you very much. I did forget one question which I meant to ask staff. Joe, there's mention in the report about a European trade mission. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Through the chair to Councilor McCreary, yes, we're going to be embarking on a foreign direct trade mission through the direction that was provided in the previous update report on trade and tariff. There are those monies that were utilized to assess perhaps some leads and other avenues to gain potential potential business in our community. One of the recommendations in that report identified attending a trade fair for food and beverage in Cologne, Germany. It is one of the biggest global food and beverage conferences in the world and is held every 2 years.
And can you elaborate as to who will be attending?
Through the chair, there's about 8,000 exhibitors attending from
Not from the city of Brantford.
No, some are from the city. Their headquarters are, for the most part, based in Europe and elsewhere. So
I was really just looking, Joe, for the compliment from the city who will be going.
through the chair, right now it's been assessed that myself as the director would be attending as well as Mayor Davis.
And do you have a budget for that?
Through the chair, we've done some preliminary budgeting and would all be in line with the funding that was provided by Can Export and the matching funds through the city, not going over or beyond that.
And will you need to seek approval for that, or is that looked after by your department's budget?
So the direction that was provided for embarking on the FDI was the direction of this council from the last update. And this is an update, a subsequent update to that report identifying where we will be planning in terms of that mission.
And do you have any recollection as to total amount budgeted for the excursion? That's not an inept word.
Through the chair, I don't have the absolute final numbers. They're getting refined as we proceed to finalize the last little bits of this travel. But I can, before council, provide you with the latest dollar figure.
That would be helpful, or simply tell us what the total cost was upon return. And when does this occur?
Through the chair, the flights are booked for September 29th. And I'll be coming home on October 7th.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. And Godspeed and good luck.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Mayor Davis, you next. Give the floor.
Yeah, respecting the employment numbers, I agree that's a concern, but it helps to look at the actual data. And although the province lost 27,000 jobs and federally was 77,000 jobs, the actual increase in number of jobs in Brantford last month was 400. The unemployment rate went up because 2,000 additional people entered the workforce looking for work. And I've been trying to determine how that's happened. Part of it is people moving to Brantford. Part of it is people who previously out of work. Now they're going back and looking for work because the local job market's expanding. And I think probably the most useful economic indicator for comparing municipalities is the number of jobs that are added each month and each quarter in each of the municipalities. And yes, there'll be more information before council about the trade trip that has been recommended to us by Investment Ontario and the federal government, and also several municipalities that have a similar ratio of food and beverage produce manufacturers we have, which we locally have 25 to 30% of our local industrial base is food and beverage. Brampton and also Pickering have been the last 2 years, and all the indication we got from those two cities is that it's an excellent conference to attend. It's the world's largest, and they were able to obtain a number of prospects and potential industries and businesses moving into their communities. Also working closely with the manufacturers we have here in Brantford, our largest, they're from Europe, Ferrero, Brisson-Bonn, Pure Foods. And so we're working with them as well they're attending the conference as well. We're working with them to expand and utilize the contacts that they have in Europe, and also visiting several of their head offices, including Giza and Pure Foods. to further cement our relationship and also determine what we can do to attract perhaps some of their suppliers here to this area. And if you look at our success in the past, that's how we've done it time and time again as suppliers to the various businesses we bring into the city. So more to come on that and exactly what it will entail. And also over what period of time and what we expect we'll be able to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the speaker, can I call the question?
Item 7.1.3 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councilors Secoli, Sullivan, Caputo, Celeste, Martin, McCrary, Carpenter, Hunt, Samwell, and Van Tilburg.
Okay, we have 6 resolutions on the agenda and 1 notice of motion, so we're going to move into resolutions. Mr. Mayor, 8.1, the Sister City relationship with Racine. You please bring forward your resolution and name your second.
I'm looking for the resolution. And I'm having trouble bringing it up on my. Yeah. Sorry, because I didn't memorize it. So whereas moved by myself seeking a seconder, Councilor Van Tilburg. Whereas the S.C. Johnson Company, a global leader in consumer products and sustainability, maintains a strong historical and corporate presence in both cities, having shaped the industrial and civic character of Brantford and Racine alike. And whereas Brantford and Racine both value inclusivity, public service, education, environmental stewardship, and are committed to the well-being of their diverse residents. And whereas Brantford and Racine are both part of the Great Lakes Basin, sharing a mutual respect and advocacy for the role the Great Lakes play in our respective communities. And whereas the establishment of a sister city relationship will promote cultural understanding, educational partnerships, economic collaboration, tourism, and people-to-people exchanges between the 2 cities. And whereas the Sister Cities International Program, founded in 1956 and endorsed by municipalities worldwide, provides a recognized framework for fostering international cooperation at local level. Now therefore be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Brantford formally establishes a sister city relationship with the City of Racine, Wisconsin for the purpose of promoting international goodwill, cultural understanding, and collaborative exchange in areas including but not limited to economic development, education, environment, arts, and governance. B, that the City of Brantford will work with officials from the City of Racine to develop a mutual memorandum of understanding to guide future cooperation, determine the scope of joint programs and exchanges, that the mayor be authorized to extend a formal invitation to the mayor and representatives of the City of Racine to participate in an official ceremony commemorating the Sister City Partnership. The staff be directed to investigate opportunities for community engagement, including schools, universities, businesses, and cultural organizations in Racine to participate in the Sister City program. That the City of Brantford calls on other cities in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative to participate in the Sister City program by partnering with a cross-border community, and that a copy of this resolution be shared with the City of Racine, S.C. Johnson leadership in both communities, Sister Cities International, Member of Parliament Larry Brock, Member of Provincial Parliament Will Boma, Governor Tony Evers, Earl Provost, Ontario Council General out of Chicago, Premier Doug Ford, and the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. If I might. So this comes out of, you'll recall that I attended a conference in Milwaukee in May. It was the Great Lakes Cities Initiative. And that was because I was hearing from other mayors, and in particular the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, that this was the organization of mayors across the Great Lakes and in this water basin on both sides of the border. It was originally established to advocate for better water management conservation, but it's morphed into promoting cross-border trade, cross-border goodwill, and actually beginning a grassroots movement to refute the allegations by the Trump administration that we Canadians are not to be trusted, we're not good traders, and designed to, as I said, encourage grassroots opposition to that and to encourage and develop trade relationships across the border in the Great Lakes Basin. So With that, I also used it as an opportunity to visit the head office of SC Johnson in Racine, Wisconsin, which is about a half an hour south of Milwaukee. And I thought that was important, given that we knew there was a risk about 2 years ago, SC Johnson perhaps leaving the city. And this I saw as a way to re-cement our relationship with them. I was interested in discovering that Racine as a city, and that's where the head office of SC Johnson is. It's very much like Brantford. It's a similar size, similar history, is surrounded by a county, and has all of those issues in its relationship with its county. But then when I went to the conference, I actually met the mayor of the city of Racine. And at that conference, the twinning of cities across the border was being promoted as a useful way in which to deal with the current tariff situation. And so the mayor of the city of Racine was very receptive, enthusiastic to this concept. They already have passed a resolution that they wish to twin with us, and this is the resolution you have before you is a mirror image of the one they passed. And so, why is it we would want to do this? Well, one, I think it helps further cement our relationship with SC Johnson, that the two cities where it has two of its major offices, worldwide offices, are now going to be twinned and dealing with one another, and that will provide further opportunities to further strengthen the relationship with SC Johnson. But it's a city in a similar situation as ours, similar history. Usually what you do is you have delegations coming from Racine to Brantford, involving industry representatives, tourism representatives, political representatives, and then usually we return as well 6 or 7 months later. And it's not just to socialize, obviously. It's to better understand one another and what we can both do to support one another and what we can both do to promote cross-border trade. And as I said, really push back on the messaging. And I saw it in the States. I was feeling it in some situations where I'd never seen it before in the States. And that is some Americans thinking we're unfair and we're nasty trading partners. But and also I noticed that when you're doing something like this and you're in the city, like say, for example, Racine, there is a lot of press exposure. You get a lot of exposure, which helps, as I said, get the message across. So this is intended to build connections for trade, tourism, investment, and we hope it'll lead to new economic growth, new contracts, increased local business opportunities. And as I said, strengthening our relationship with Racine, Wisconsin, in part strengthens our relationship with SC Johnson. So hoping you'll all support this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the speakers, Councilor McCurry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I will have another amendment coming if you could advise me when that would be appropriate to introduce. I think that this is a worthwhile initiative and I fully support it. I do wonder how we reconcile the decision we made earlier in the year about prohibiting non-essential traffic by city folks to America. Perhaps that may require revisiting what we said earlier, but I think it's worthwhile to do that if in fact we need to. And I'm just wondering as well, an estimate of staff time. This does look like it's a fairly complex endeavor for our folks to put together, and perhaps we can get a reporting of that later on when we start to see some of the positive results that no doubt are going to come out of this in the fullness of time.
Thank you. Further speakers? Seeing none, your amendment would be available.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amendment would add a clause G, which says the staff investigate and report on the history, status, and opportunity to resurrect sister city relationships with other communities, including Berrien County, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, and some European cities who I couldn't quite remember. And I'd be seeking a seconder for that.
Councilor Caputo is your seconder.
And I'll speak to it ever so briefly.
Were you speaking of the cities that we already have relationships with, reestablishing?
Correct, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes. So we have done that in past. In the 60s, we had a relationship with Michigan communities and we had an exchange of athletes in something called the Canterbury Games at the time. Some folks here would probably remember that. And it does seem to me that there were other relationships that we established. They've obviously ebbed over the years, and although perhaps not as valuable as the one that the mayor is embarking on with respect to the Racine program, it would certainly be worthwhile to resurrect these as well. And considering that you can't have too many friends. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Caputo to speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Berrien County and Benton Harbor, are they not both in the same vicinity? Right on the water, basically across from Racine? Okay, and with our European city, we do not have a relationship now with the city in Poland? Okay, just to put some clarity. So I'm in agreement. I think Racine is actually a fantastic opportunity, since we've seen a year ago or a year and a half ago what the impact of S.C. Johnson has in the city of Brantford and its employees, and the fact that they've been here for over 100 years. And what we needed to do and try to help that endeavor move forward. So I think it'd be fantastic to form a relationship and have that working both in our favor. And then anything we could do in the state of Michigan, which is across from there, by all means, I think it works for us as well. So I'll support this all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. And just the staff will be able to bring that list forward by council of the cities that we already, I see them shaking their heads that Councilor McCurry saw, whether we already had formed relationship with to reattach those relationships. Okay. Further comments? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Mayor, second time.
Yeah, no, this is the first time I referenced this amendment, I think. Yeah. So in terms of recent history, you'll recall that the last council twinned with a city in the Ukraine, the end of the Ukrainian war. And unfortunately, because it's, near an active war zone, it's been very difficult to be able to do anything with that relationship. But we did establish a twin relationship with a city in Poland called Ostrowiec Opolski, which I visited 2 years ago, I might say, on my own dime. And it also is a very interesting community, about the same size as Brantford. It's undergone a very rapid progression, modernization since the days of communism from 25, 30 years ago. And my staff and myself have reached out to the mayor of Ostrowiec Opolski, Mayor Klimek, and asked if she would be interested in, she did express an interest when I was there, of coming here with a trade delegation, because they have some industries that are common to ours. We're waiting for a response. If Mayor Klimek says she would like to come, likely in the spring, of course, there'd be a resolution coming back to council to be able to authorize that and extend a formal invitation. Beyond that, I think there is a twinning with a city, I believe in Hungary, but that's going back many, many years, I think. And I can't remember any of these others, but that's a telling of the recent relationship we've had with some of the more recent twinnings.
For the speakers to the amendment, seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment.
And the amendment carried unanimously on recorded vote of 11-0. All those voting in favor are Councilors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCurry, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sequoia, and Mayor Davis.
Motion as amended. See no speakers, I'll call the question on the motion as amended.
And the motion as amended carried unanimously on recorded vote of 11-0. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councilors Sequoia, Sullivan, Caputo, Celeste, Martin, McCurry, Carpenter, Hunt, Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
Thank you. And we're on to 8.2. Councilor Sullivan, Animal Control Pigeons, your resolution, please bring it forward and state your section.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor McCurry. This is 8.2 Municipal Code, Chapter 206, Animal Control for Pigeons. Whereas provisions within the city's animal control bylaw currently allow for the keeping of pigeons in circumstances where the owners of the pigeons is registered member in good standing of the Brant County Pigeon, Poultry, and Pet Stock Association, the Brantford Racing Pigeon Club, or the Brantford Invitational Racing Pigeon Club, and the pigeons are being raised for exhibition at a bona fide agricultural exposition or for other competition. Whereas in recent months, there has been numerous complaints from residents in Ward 1 specifically, whose reasonable enjoyment of living has been negatively impacted as they neighbor a pigeon coop. Now therefore it be resolved that staff be directed to bring forward a report for council's consideration, which will lay out options for potential amendments to the city's animal control bylaw to further regulate or eliminate the ability to keep pigeons within the city of Brantford. And if I may speak to it.
Yes, you may.
So this particular part of the code has not been changed in over a decade. And obviously we all know that Brantford has massively changed in the last decade. So where we need more guidance, that's why we're turning to bylaw on this. But we have neighbors that are now on top of each other with the fact of intensification. So I've had neighbors complaining that they're barbecuing and these pigeons have been released and they're doing their business and it's landing on their barbecues while they're cooking, it's landing in their pools, it's landing on their cars they just finished washing. It's really negatively impacting the area. So I think it's very important that we take a look at this and see where we can make some necessary changes, not necessarily eliminate them, but find spots where they make sense to have them. Because in intensified areas, it doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sullivan. I have Councilor Martin next on the agenda to speak this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question through to staff. Will existing pigeon owners be grandfathered? Which is not the normal case with bylaws?
So through the chair to the councillor, Nicole Wilmot, Commissioner of Community Development, that would be something that we would look at through the review of this bylaw. But it would seem to make sense that that would be a provision that we would include in that. We would want to ensure that we are allowing for those pigeon owners that are already registered with our clerk's department.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you, and through to staff. Would there be a member of staff who would recollect a bylaw that we had at one time which prohibited the excessive feeding of wildlife?
Through the chair to the councillor, I don't think that there's anybody here that has that recollection. We could definitely look to that and bring something back should you request that.
That would be most helpful, and it would appear that several of us around the circle here are the corporate memory. Thank you. If you could just provide us with what that bylaw used to say and whatever became of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Scully, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my own property has been, I don't want to say victimized, but visited by the pigeons in the neighborhood. So I'm familiar with sort of the ramifications of what that looks like. But I do recall receiving some complaints from some individuals in the neighborhood regarding the pigeons and specifically the excessive feeding of the pigeons. So I did reach out to bylaw not too long ago about it, and I was told that the droppings from birds did not fall into the category that we were able to exercise anything against. So I am fully aware of this issue that's going on in the neighborhood and very supportive. And thank you, Councillor Sullivan, for drawing this up and bringing it forward. And I look forward to seeing what staff come up with. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Scully. Councilor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's pigeon night, I guess, because we have a problem with it in Ward 2 as well. Not the same identical problem, but problems where HVAC systems are getting ruined by pigeons building nests inside them, where people are feeding the pigeons and attracting them to the area. So staff are already working on that. Bylaw has it in their work schedule. So I know the whole pigeon situation is being looked at by bylaw.
Thank you, Councilor Sless. I would just remind members of council, I tried to bring a resolution forward to deal with roosters making noise in the community, and we ended up with 10 chickens and a rooster allowed on every property in the city. Just saying, careful what you ask for. Thank you. I'll call the question.
Okay, and item 8.2 carried on a recorded vote of 9-2. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councillor Sicoli, Sullivan, Caputo, Slash, Martin, McCurry, Carpenter, Hunt, and those opposed, Councillor Samuel and Van Tilburg.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.3, Council McCreary, Highway 403 sign it up, please. Please bring it forward and state your seconder.
Chair, thank you. It's seconded by Councilor Martin. And let me read it as follows. Whereas Highway 403 has been beneficial to the growth and development of the city of Brantford, a boon to business and residents, and whereas from time to time, emergency closure of Highway 403 leads to congestion and chaos on Brantford municipal streets. Now therefore be it resolved, the city of staff be directed to A, consult with Brantford Police, Ontario Provincial Police, Ministry of Transportation, and city departments, and B, review the current emergency detour route signage and explore alternative strategies for efficient traffic flow during EDR activations, and C, report back to City Council no later than Q4 of this year, being 2025. And to speak to it, Mr. Chair, we've seen many examples over the last number of years of highway closures due to accidents, due to incompetent drivers not knowing the heights of their vehicles and thereby impacting bridges, which hopefully will not happen again thanks to the largesse of the Ministry of Transportation and putting it right. By law, they're supposed to detour to Powerline Road, but they do not. They follow their GPS and come along Fairview Drive, annoying the hundreds of residents there by their presence. So the resolution before us today would ask our staff to embark on a course of action to try and mitigate that type of occurrence, perhaps by making more clear the EDR signage, which is provincially mandated, perhaps by creating a Made in Brantford plan, which would allow our city staff, our bylaw staff, perhaps our work staff, perhaps Brantford City Police, to mobilize local resources in the event of such an emergency and a closure to begin to offer a little more assistance to the EDR route signs by directing primarily transport truck traffic from Fairview Drive and some of the other streets in this city that are adversely impacted by their presence. So I would hope folks would support this. It is a bit of an issue to folks in the third ward, in as much as Fairview Drive is largely the street most impacted, perhaps Tollgate as well. And I'm sure those folks will be greatly appreciative of anything we can do to relieve their suffering during these incidents. Thank you.
Yes, Kurt, does it also include the review of the traffic signal system and timing when it comes to EDR?
I think that's inherent in the resolution, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Speaking to the resolution? Seeing that, I'll call the question.
Item 8.3 carried unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. All those voting in favor are Councilors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Carpenter, McCrory, Martin, Caputo, Sullivan, Secolia, Mayor Davis.
Okay, that brings us to 8.4, leveling the playing field, unlocking equity through transparency and accountability. Mayor Davis, this is your resolution. Please bring it forward and name your seconder.
Yeah, because I don't have a word made, it's always hard to know for sure whether I get a seconder. Thank you, Council Samuel. You're seconding this. So the title is Leveling the Playing Field, Unlocking Equity Through Transparency and Accountability. Whereas Section 88.18 of the Municipal Elections Act 1996 requires municipalities to adopt policies and procedures governing the use of municipal resources during election campaign period, and whereas the City of Brantford's corporate policy use of corporate resources for election purposes affirms the principle that all candidates, including members of council, shall have equal access to resources and that no individual shall benefit from the improper use of their position during election period. Whereas the policy clearly prohibits members of council from using any city facilities, equipment, supplies, services, staff, or other resources for election-related purposes, including the promotion of a candidacy. And where a service member requests from members of council for municipal service delivery must be handled in a manner that avoids the appearance of preferential treatment or political influence, particularly during the campaign period. And whereas the Municipal Act requires that all municipalities adopt and maintain a policy regarding the relationship between members of council and staff, whereas the City of Brantford does not have a policy regarding the relationship between members of council and staff as per Section 271 of the Act, whereas a policy regarding the relationship between members of council and staff aims to promote productive and respectful interactions between members of council and staff and to provide a mechanism to address workplace matters between the parties. Now therefore be it resolved, A, the corporate policy 004, use of corporate resources for election purposes, be amended to include the following. that during the campaign period beginning May 1st and ending on voting day, members of council and candidates shall not direct or request staff to prioritize, expedite, or address any constituent service issues, where doing so may create the perception of influencing or appealing to electors for campaign benefit. The members of council and candidates shall refer all constituent service concerns during the campaign period through standard city customer service channels without follow-up or direction to staff that may be construed as campaign-related involvement. B, the necessary bylaws be presented to city council for approval. C, the staff be directed to prepare council staff relationship policy as per the municipal act for council consideration. And D, the council staff policy shall include, but not be limited to the following criteria. 1, emphasizing mutual respect, courtesy, and professionalism in all interactions towards working collaboratively to achieve a shared purpose. 2, clearly outline the distinct roles of council members and staff. 3, establish clear guidelines for communication between council members and staff. 4, provide mechanisms for staff to raise concerns about council member conduct without fear of reprisal. And 5, that the policy shall be complementary to other established policies, employee code of conduct, council code of conduct, respectful workplace policy. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just getting my stopwatch.
I'd be happy to know I don't start the clock until you get to speak. I don't do it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to do my own stopwatch here, so. Okay. So this came out of a conversation I had with staff. We were talking about how we can, quote, clean up municipal elections where, and I'll tell you about another matter, another initiative I'm taking to do that, to make it a much more level playing field. And one of the things they told me is that I said to them, gee, during election period, staff mustn't really be all that busy because you're not getting direction from a council that's meeting regularly. And they said, absolutely not. It's one of the business periods that they have flooding in every day, requests for service, generally coming from council members that are on the campaign trail. And I thought to myself, when I really thought about it, aren't we supposed to be encouraging? I know it doesn't work it works against our best self-interest, but encouraging people to run for council, and it is hard to run against a member of council. You run against name recognition, a certain ability and momentum. And so I thought, give you an example. You have someone who's not a member of council knocking on the door and someone says, fix that pothole, please, down the street for me. And if you're a candidate that's not a member of council, you're going to say, well, you know, here's the customer service number, or when I get elected and please vote for me, I'll get that fixed. If there's a member of council doing it, I mean, they can just, you know, pick up the phone, and that's part of what a councillor does, right? Part of their legitimate duties and responsibilities. And before you know it, the pothole's fixed. And the end result is that that certainly the resident gets good service, but it creates kind of a barrier to new candidates. And all this is saying is that we put it all on a level playing field. And if there's a service request, just refer it to customer service. We have a huge customer service department that is intended to take customer service requests. You may feel that May 1st is an unfair date. That's the beginning of the municipal campaign period, but you know, I have no problem changing it to July 1st, August 1st. I mean, really campaigning doesn't really gear up until then anyways. And if I might just say that this is one of a two-part package. When I was campaigning last time, there were a lot of dirty tricks pulled in my campaign that I thought breached sections of the Municipal Elections Act, in particular those involving third-party advertising.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
What's your point of order?
The mayor is addressing something which he'll bring later, which is not on today's agenda.
Yep.
We each
It's
got
part of the same package, level of the playing field.
Mayor, speak to the future candidates, not previous.
Okay, all right. So all I'm doing is it's a direction to staff. It's part and parcel of this resolution to create a task force that involving cross-departmental. So representatives from clerks, from legal, from bylaw enforcement, from provincial prosecutions, and also the police be invited. And the idea is creating a good training for candidates to know what the rules are. 2, making it clear to candidates what you do if you have a complaint about other candidates and what they're doing beyond just simply signs. And 3, then providing a really effective method for investigating the complaint dealing with it in a proactive manner, advising the candidate, don't do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. And if someone continues to do something or they commit a serious breach or infraction of the Municipal Elections Act, that there's an immediate investigation and if possible, prosecution during the campaign period. The days of the Wild West, I think, should come to an end. And we have rules the province has imposed. We need a way of imposing and making sure those rules are followed and that there's effective and prompt investigation and follow-up when there are serious issues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's all part and parcel. That's this direction, I think.
Thank you. And I have a list of speakers: Caputo, Sokoli, Sullivan, and Celeste. Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I need some clarity on a couple of things in this actual resolution. So simple yes or no. Is this resolution outlawing me to have a conversation directly with a city staff member concerning anything that I would ever need to have happen with a constituent?
It doesn't allow for cross debate or cross questions, so you can raise the question.
Is there a staff member that can answer this question?
Through the chair, Chris Goche, City Clerk, Director of Clerk Services. Can you repeat your question, please?
So when it says here clearly outline the distinct role of council members and staff, establish clear guidelines between council members and staff, is this eliminating me from having a direct line to any staff member when I'm dealing with issues with constituents?
Through the chair, so under the use of corporate resources for election purposes, the application of the policy, it says in the policy that this policy shouldn't preclude a member of council from their obligations as a municipal councillor. In general, part of the mayor's resolution also speaks to the staff-council relationship policy. Technically, council decisions and direction of staff are done at the council level. Council steers the boat, they set the policy, they set the vision, and the administration rows. So essentially what the resolution before us, how I interpret it, is just reinforcing the notion that individual members of council should not direct staff and that should be at the council level.
Yes or no?
It depends. The resolution speaks to for the benefit of the candidates or councillors campaign. That would be hard to investigate whether or not a service request would be in benefit of that individual's campaign.
Okay, thank you. One more question, or get some clarity again, based on the fact of there was discussion or part of it has talking about having an existing councillor reaching out to staff to get something expedited in hopes of trying to win over a council or voted exercise. That's how I conduct myself every day. I'm proactive to everything that's happening and I'm trying to get everything done instantaneously. So during the election, am I supposed to refrain from that, trying to get something done instantaneously? So I need that question answered as well.
Through the chair, council, they have the ability to use the constituent concerns resource that staff have implemented. So similar to any service request that you receive from your constituents, you would use that service and be able to follow up with that member of staff to ensure that that constituent concern has been dealt with.
I'm good for now.
Wait, come back. Councilor Sokoli.
Yes, thank you. Don't go anywhere, Chris. So just to be clear for everybody, staff are supposed to receive direction from council, not from a councillor.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Perfect world. That's the way it's supposed to be. And if us councillors come across an issue from a constituent, we are supposed to use the appropriately laid out pathways for us, for instance, councillor request vehicle to get things done. We're not supposed to walk around here at City Hall and say, you do this and you do this and you do this. Am I interpreting this correctly?
Correct. That's a foundational principle of the municipal act.
In the perfect world, of
Yeah.
course. So, thank you very much for answering those questions. I hope that assists everybody with figuring out where we're going with this. But I am a firm believer that elections are supposed to be a competition of ideas, not of access. And that every candidate, whether they're a sitting councillor or a first-time challenger, deserves to face all of the residents on a level playing field. So the rules already say that we are not allowed to use city resources for election purposes, and all that I see this is doing is reinforcing that policy there. I think it removes the appearance of advantage by making it clear that during the campaign, constituent issues are supposed to go through the standard channels of service that everybody would have the exact same access to, and that we remain without political interference when we're getting things done. So, and just as important to what we've been talking about here, I think, is the direction to create a council staff relationship policy. Because where I was going with this is we do have some counselors that walk around and are directing staff, and it puts staff in a really awkward position that they feel like they have to do things, or what will happen to their jobs, or whatever, even if they don't believe that it's the best thing to do. I think it creates boundaries and expectations, and that staff deserve to work in an environment that is respectful, professional, and free from political pressure. So I am fully going to support this. I look forward to seeing what staff come back with. And I think all of that this does really is protect the integrity of our democracy. And I look forward to seeing where this goes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sokoli. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're doing a fine job tonight. It's mentioned fair play. Well, we all know the old adjective. It's not what have you done, it's what have you done for me lately. Now, for 3 years, you're going around and you're getting things done. You're handling customer or resident concerns. Now, all of a sudden, in the last 6 months leading into election, you're being told you can't do that. That's going to look upon the residents that have counted on you for the last 3 years as you now not being able to deliver on their needs. So I think that that's an issue. Potholes was mentioned about getting them fixed. Well, I wasn't a council member last election, and I got potholes fixed by contacting Mark. So it's not that hard for a candidate that's not on council to get things done. Also, some things need to be expedited. You've got a pothole that's going to put somebody at risk, and all of a sudden you have to follow the complaint or the customer form. And now all of a sudden, who's going to take responsibility for that child that goes in there with their bicycle? That's on my conscience because it's under my watch. So I've got some concerns with the way this is drafted.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too have problems with the way this is read. Some of it I agree with, but a lot of it I don't. To me, whether it's election time or not, you've got a job to do, and you try and do your job the best you can, and use the tools that you have that you've been using for years, and you continue to do that to do the best you can for the folks that you work for. So during election time should be no different than the day after the election, in my opinion. You're out there to do the best job you can do to representing the people that you work for. What it's telling me is the person that's out in the field and sees the problem is not the one that is deciding whether it's important or not. Somebody who doesn't see it, who receives an email about it, is going to say, well, that's got to get done right away. They don't see it. They don't know what you've looked at. The person that's out there looking at the problem is the one that should be making that judgment call and creating an urgency about it. If you want to level the playing field, to me, you would set up some type of a system where candidates who aren't incumbents have a direct route in to submit problems that they're encountering as they're going through the wards, knocking on doors. To me, that levels the playing field. Everybody has access. You have a dedicated email address for those folks to deal with, and they can submit the problems that they're seeing out there. Does it pick up during an election time? Absolutely it does. It has to. You're out there knocking on doors. You're actually looking for problems, or they're finding you because you're at the doorstep at hundreds of people's homes a day. So you're going to run into problems and you've got to deal with them. If it's hard for staff, I agree it's hard for staff. It's also hard for the candidate, the incumbent. You're dealing with multiple people complaining about a host of things, and you're trying to balance that and run a campaign at the same time. Even though you're the incumbent, you do have a job to do while the election is on, and you're also a candidate. So you're playing two roles, and the one is your job to be doing at that time, and the other is to trying to keep your job. So I don't. We have a code of conduct. So if we're concerned about how people deal with staff, it's governed by a code of conduct. We have a code of conduct that we're supposed to follow and be respectful and have all the things that we talk about, the good working relationship, the good working place to be employed. So I'm not going to support this. I'm going to vote against it. And I hate doing that because there's things in here that I think are a good thing to be doing. But to me, the bad outweighs the good, so I won't be supporting it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sluis. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, and through you to staff. So Chris, this specifically speaks to constituent service issues. So we've heard potholes. That to me means things like a downed tree or some other service type request. But there's a significant amount of requests that we get from, I am one that uses the council requests. Anytime I get a service request, I fire that email right off to the council request email. But there's a number of things, and I'm not sure if Maria is even on the line, but you know, when we did our training on how to use the council request email, it was acknowledged that there's a number of things that we would be being asked of constituents that are not service requests. For example, the status of a project in the ward, the neighborhood association is having a barbecue and they need picnic down. This is an example that happened on the weekend, that they needed picnic tables delivered because they weren't there for the barbecue that was happening on Saturday. So those types of things are not individual constituent service requests, but they still require the councillor to interact with staff, because you can't send that kind of request through the council requests email. And so I don't know if there needs to be a further definition of what constituent service requests are. I feel that, at least I do, I use the council requests for service related issues constantly, but there are a number of constituent inquiries that cannot be defined as service requests. And by supporting this resolution, does that then mean that I'm not an effective councillor from the 1st of May because I can't help out constituents or corporations, or even in the case of Ward 4, a lot of what we deal with are business related concerns. So I think that the word constituent service issues probably needs, if anything, a further definition based on the sheer volume of emails and requests that we get that are not fix a pothole, cut down a tree branch, those types of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Van Tilburg, and then I have Councillor Martin. Councillor Van Tilburg, give the floor.
Actually, it's been a pretty good debate on the subject. I actually don't have any problem with this resolution at all. It's before me. And I also don't believe it's going to make much difference to how we act and how we do our jobs. I believe we're still going to be doing the same thing. We're still being committed our jobs. All I might say is that, you know, at a time when I was a Green candidate running for a position, I would love to have an equal playing field. And I think that's what this is actually trying to get towards, is an equal playing field where no one's using undue sway of staffers to get an advantage in any way. And, you know, we have seen that where there is pressure in election periods on staff. It just exists. So what I think we're thinking as counselors is that when we go out there and we know, you know, I don't know how many people you get running in your wards, but Ward 5 often had 10, 11 candidates running. That generates between all those candidates knocking on doors and us knocking on doors, massive volume upon city staff. And so, and I'm sure they actually hear the same issue coming from candidates in the field, the counselors in the field, and I'm quite confident they can do their job. Because if they hear about a sidewalk and they hear it from me and they hear it from candidates, they hear it from them, they know what their procedure is to do with the sidewalk. They don't need to have somebody saying, hey, I want you to get out there on Thursday and mark it with a spray paint marker just to make it seem like you've accomplished something. Constituent will know whether or not you're working for them and how well you're working for them. I could see if you first read this, you might think, does that prevent me from doing my job in May? And I've looked over this over and over again to make sure that, you know, sometimes we try to do the best things and we end up tying our hands. I see nothing here that affects us from doing our jobs. What it does do is it re-highlights that from the period of May, the other candidates who are running will see that from the period of May, they should be on a relatively equal playing field to an incumbent. And incumbents have a significant advantage. They've been sitting in the position, they have name recognition, they've been dealing with the public all the time. So, and I don't see how that's going to change. I can't see it's going to change how I do my work. I think it's just might make it a more balanced election and without putting undue pressure on staff.
Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During a federal or provincial election, government shuts down for about a month for the election period. And that works for those levels of government because they have parties with armies of volunteers that can go out and canvass the area fairly quickly. A municipal election is a totally different animal. We're talking about 6 months here. The work of council does not shut down. We continue having committee of the whole meetings, council meetings, other committee meetings. It all carries on right up until, you know, a week or two before the election, well, after we have our final meeting. So it's this, I see this resolution as trying to take it more towards provincial or federal, where it's almost shutting down some of the work of councillors. And I don't agree with that. I think we need to allow councillors to do the job that they were elected to do. You can't just shut things down for 6 months. That's ridiculous. So I won't be supporting this. I don't think it's appropriate. That's just my views. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you very much. Well, when this was read as a notice of motion, I was very excited and I looked forward to what was coming. The title was Leveling the Playing Field, Unlocking Equity Through Transparency and Accountability. Leveling the playing field, why not? It's great. It's a great idea. I like leveling the playing field. Unlocking equity, who can argue against that? Unlocking equity is a fine idea. Transparency, we're all about that. Accountability, we say we're about that. This is all great. But then I read the resolution and I must say I was pretty disappointed that it didn't really reflect any of that stuff that was in the title. Reminded me a bit of Mr. Trump's big, beautiful bill, which was big, but wasn't necessarily beautiful. The title doesn't reflect what's in here. Contrary to what's been said tonight, I do believe that this has the effect of stripping us of some of our ability to excel at the work that we do on behalf of our constituents. I think it also speaks to abandonment of yet another of our long-standing traditions of committees of council reviewing policies and procedures. It also restricts the contribution which can be made during the writ period by other candidates. In Ward 3, Greg and I have always encouraged the other candidates to report things that they come across, to send the information into city staff and to let them know, because it adds a lot more eyes to the territory than the four of us. The two of us, totally four eyes. in my opinion, you can't fix this resolution by amendment. Counselor Slush said that there's some good stuff in it. I agree, but, gosh, you just can't save it. I'm not going to support this. Excuse me. I'm not going to support it. And quite frankly, I really don't, I really fail to understand the reasoning in bringing it forward. How am I doing for time, Mr. Chair? Okay, I'll just continue then. So I said it seeks to limit the impact and effectiveness of members of council. To go further, it limits our ability to interact with staff members. It requires us to submit service requests, which is part of what we do now, through an email portal to be disseminated to appropriate staff members. But anybody that doesn't admit at this table to having side discussions with members of staff to get things done is not being completely honest with the folks that are watching this, because it does happen and everybody does it. We'll be limited in terms of our verbal interactions with staff, okay? We're not going to be able to meet in person with staff to advance issues. And this is going to really disrupt some of the longstanding relationships between us as members of council and members of staff. It puts a wedge in between us. It's going to cause discontent, not just for staff, but for council as well. It's a problem that doesn't need fixing because there's no problem to be fixed, a solution without a problem. And again, I don't really understand the motivation behind this. To expand upon the limitations of non-incumbent candidates, we could provide them with their own portal, like we have council request portal. We could have a candidate request portal where each and every one of these individuals could make a contribution to fixing the things that need fixing in this community that the 11 of us can't be out every day. It's a windfall for the community. It's a windfall for the neighborhoods when you've got 50 people on the streets hearing concerns from everybody, right? Again, I don't know the motivation to remove that. And I spoke earlier about the longstanding traditions. This is yet another longstanding tradition of this city council that's been overcome and undone. We would typically do what's spoken to in this resolution as a subcommittee or as a task force of council, and that has been bypassed really in this case. So it should be up to a small group of us meeting as a task force to make recommendations to this larger group. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Before I go to second time speakers, I want to congratulate Councilor Secolio. I think said it best actually. When we talked about this resolution, and Councilor Van Tilburg. I agree wholeheartedly that it should be leveling the playing field. Really means leveling the playing field. We've seen. I've done this a few times. You know, this is not my first election. 13, I think it is. So if council members are concerned about knocking on doors to get things done, we could be knocking on doors every summer. It's always available to us, and some do. I know that. So I like the idea of the council request. Let everyone use council requests. Councilors, candidates, council request works very well. I congratulate staff on council requests. They fine tune it. They've made it work. It works very well. The interaction there is part of the council request process. I think that, does anybody not remember the last election? It wasn't that long ago. We saw members of council come to this table, waive the rules of notice of motion, waive the rules of timing, bring forward stop signs and fixing this and fixing that and putting this and then putting that in because they heard it when they were knocking on doors. And they used that opportunity to bring it to council. And I think that was flawed. Staff now had a work schedule. They had to adjust to the work schedule, and every member of council is going to support that award councilors because they want to do the same. And that's not leveling the playing field because the candidates can't do that. They can't come to this table during that time. I think the mayor's bang on about this. I think we should level the playing field. I have no problem with May 1st. I have no problem with using the council request form. I think it works very well. I think staff have done a great job. And if staff need to contact us or the candidate, they can always do that. And that should be part of the process. If staff think they need clarification, when we got 30, 40, 50 people knocking on doors during an election campaign, we've got feet on the street. That's to our advantage. And they should all be reporting, as was said, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's a tree that's broken, whether it's a tree that's in the way that needs trimmed, all those kinds of things that come day to day council requests. We'll have like 25 on our phone when we get home, each of us probably, but those things can happen all the time. So let everyone have the same opportunities through a council request to do the same process. I never been one of those people that go to staff and say, no, I want you to do this. I'm always asking. Did I hear someone say something? And it sounded like someone swore over there. That would be appropriate. So it's always a discussion, a two-way discussion with staff. That's how it's supposed to be. We're never supposed to be directing staff. As clerk has just told us, that's not our role. So I think the mayor's onto something here, and I will be supporting it because I am all right with a level playing field. And I think we should have a level playing field. We already have an advantage as incumbents. Mayor Davis, you're next, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It actually goes to, and some speakers have touched on it, it's a larger issue. It's not just about level the playing field during a municipal election. It's about what is the role of a councillor? And under the Municipal Act, it's to set policy, guidelines, budgets, etc. It's not to go around directing staff what to do and to be a super duper service, customer service representative. And in fact, our code of conduct says that you're not to direct staff. And I know that, and so the bigger issue the last council tried to address, we set up the customer service module, which you've been following, Councillor Hunt. And the idea was that what was happening is when you have council members that direct staff to do something or make a very strong suggestion, they'd be happy if they did something. What's the staff member supposed to do? This is a person that potentially could have an impact on their employability. At least they perceive that, right? And you're undercutting the manager who's trying to manage the department and do so in a very efficient, productive way. When you have counselors coming in, giving direction, it disrupts their work plan, their management plan. Staff don't know who the boss is. The Municipal Act clearly says you don't do it. And that you should be dealing with customer service or at the very least commissioners so that they then can filter it down through the system. That's the way you do it properly. That's not the way it's been done in Brantford. I agree with Councillor McCurry. That's not the way it's been done in Brantford. It's been done this way for a long time. It should not continue. The customer service module is there so we can collate all the service requests. Staff can determine, where the trends are, what needs to be addressed, setting priorities, setting the work plans. If these requests are coming in piecemeal ad hoc, it's really difficult for the managers to manage efficiently. Councillors should be doing what you're doing, Councillor Hunt, using that service, or you deal with the commissioner of the department, one or the other. Because the problem is when you're going down to line staff, like I said, they don't know what to do. They don't know who the boss is. Is it the councillor? Is it their manager? Is it the director? Who is it? That's why we're trying to, and we have for the last 5 or 6 years, past council, this council, we've been trying to regularize the process. So that's really the underlying issue here. And that old way of doing business, it does create an advantage. It's very hard for those who are running, who are not here inside City Hall and, part of the process here. It's very hard for someone who's a new candidate to be able to do that. And so if everybody uses the customer service model, I'd say, Councillor Hunt, that when you read the resolution, it talks about, using the customer service module and if it isn't something that you can use the customer service module for, well, then obviously you'd use, other methods. And again, the best way to do that is to speak to a commissioner or a director, right? Because then you're not directing staff. You're just simply asking commissioner if that can be done. They can build it in their plan. So I think this is long overdue for us to really tackle this problem so that we can manage the city more efficiently and we can be fair to all candidates in the election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I get second time speakers. I have Councilor Caputo and Councilor Caputo.
Mr. Chairman, and you are doing a very good job tonight. We'll see how it ends. So just back to my points before, I think I am going to say that I am guilty of a few things, and that being when Councillor Hunt said training on the council request, first thing I said was training. Wasn't sure what that meant. I use council requests, but I'm guilty of copying the director and or the planning or engineering and or traffic when I need something so that it goes directly to them as well. But I do use that council request. At no time have I ever directed staff to do something. I've asked them to look at things and I seek their advice because they don't work for me. That's not how this works out. They are my support staff and they're here to help my job to make it easier. I'm not here to direct them or tell them what they need to do. I do have some issues with this still going forward, but I do appreciate Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Sokoli's thoughts with the fact that it is a governing way of doing things fairly for everybody. And the last election was my first, and I'm certainly a little more wiser today than I was back then. But at the same time, I wouldn't want anyone to have a disadvantage because, well, I have a staff member I can call to and they don't. So we'll see how I vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. Councilor Hunt.
Thank you. And I just wanted to be clear that I do use the council service requests for the purpose that they're meant for, but I also do not direct staff. I actually rely very heavily on what I think are our excellent staff to get me answers to a constituent question. And I think that that's a different look on it than a council to staff relationship. So if I want to know when we instituted the last pigeon bylaw, for example, then I know that I can reach out to staff and get the answer to the question that potentially is being asked by the constituent, which may not be something that can go through the council request. So I just wanted to clarify that I think there are things that do not go through the service requests. But from my perspective, I hope no staff feel like I'm directing them, and I try not to bug them because I'm also very busy. But I do rely heavily on our staff for their expertise and the excellent work that they do in their departments. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hunt. I have nobody else to list, so I'm going to call the question. Oh, Councilor McCreary, second time.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And not to try to influence the outcome, but I do agree that you're doing a very good job, Mr. Chair. I guess, you know, when it comes right down to it, who gets to decide whether Councillor Hunt's question of a staff member is direction or not? Who decides that? Who decides if I talk to the clerk about something while we're passing in the hallway, if that's giving direction or not? Who makes these decisions? This is inherently vague with respect to that. And, you know, we've categorized this, several folks here tonight have categorized it as giving direction to staff. And I doubt very much that there are many of us that actually do that. Many of us make requests of staff. But I would like to think that everybody here understands the boundaries. I certainly do. Perhaps there are some that do not. And that's can be dealt with respect to our current code of conduct and our human resources policies and practices. We have everything in hand that we need to deal with folks who are heavy-handed with our staff. And I don't know of anybody here that is, quite frankly, but there are avenues to deal with that. And that starts with the mayor. It starts with the CAO or the GM. If somebody has a concern, that can be expressed. And I know from experience that that has occurred in past with respect to some members of council who may not be with us any longer. So I would urge councillors to think long and hard about supporting this today, lest we end up back here 6 months from now. And those of you who've supported this tonight will be wanting to say to us, those of us who opposed it, you were right.
Thank you, Councilor McCurry. Seeing no further questions, I'm going to call the, okay, sorry, Councilor Scully, you did have a second time. Yeah, I'm going to call the vote. Call the vote.
Item 8.4 carried on a recorded vote of 7-4. All those voting in favor are Mayor Davis, Councilors Secoli, Caputo, Carpenter, Samwell, Van Tilburg, Hunt. Those opposed, Councilors Sullivan, Celeste, McCurry, and Councilor Martin.
Thank you. I think we have, next we have 8.5 is Councilor Caputo's resolution. Could you please bring forward the resolution and name your seconder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was fun. Just wanted to say that.
Oh, we're not over yet.
So, moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councilor Sluss. It's right-in access from Wayne Gretzky Parkway to 195 Henry Street. Whereas in 1990 and 195 Henry Street is home to a fully built-out multi-tenant commercial plaza developed by Vacano Developments Limited, operational since 2007 and completed in 2022 with a total gross area of 8,928 square meters, 96,000 square feet. And whereas the plaza supports a diverse range of tenants, including federal, provincial, and private entities, many of which provide essential services and support to the Brantford and Brant county communities, including vulnerable populations such as the elderly, persons with disabilities, and individuals from underprivileged backgrounds. And whereas the lack of direct access to this development from Wayne Gretzky Parkway, a controlled access roadway, has been a consistent concern raised by tenants and patriots, with particular emphasis on accessibility and convenience for those requiring critical support services. And whereas a precedent for similar access has already been established through the recent approval and installation of a right-in only access from Wayne Gretzky Parkway to the nearby Costco development. And whereas a professional traffic consultant, Paradigm Transportation Solutions Limited, has completed a detailed traffic study report which concludes that the proposed right-in only access will not adversely affect traffic flow on Wayne Gretzky Parkway and will fast reduce certain turning movements at both Gretzky Parkway and Henry Street intersection and the Henry Street and Bosworth Court intersection. And whereas future expansion of Wayne Gretzky Parkway is anticipated to accommodate increased traffic volumes associated with growth in the boundary lands and surrounding areas, reinforcing the strategic importance of this area along this corridor. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Brantford City Council respectfully consider and approve a right-in only driveway access from Wayne Gretzky Parkway, a controlled access roadway to 195 Henry Street at the sole expense of the property owner, Vacano Developments Limited, and direct staff to review the technical requirements, safety implications, and planning considerations associated with this request and report back to council with recommendations. And if I may, let's learn that tonight. Just a few points that I wanted to make here for this very reason. And I think I'm in complete agreement that Gretzky Parkway should be exactly what Gretzky Parkway is, and that's a free-flowing, moving people from north to south and in certain areas. And I understand that the Linden Park Mall never had any access to it with the exception of the lights at Edmonton going into it, or you would have had to go in off of Linden Road. But in this particular instance, with Costco having it done, now I understand, and I do know that the MTO was big time in having that put into place. But we have a property that has just this a large amount of tenants and really needs to have that type of entrance as well, because basically what's happening is years backing up traffic. So basically I just wrote a couple of notes what I wanted to do. So concern from tenants and patrons. The accessibility has been a concern since the plaza opened. A right-in only access directly from Gretzky Parkway responds to years of feedback, improving both convenience and safety for all daily users. The precedent being set already with Costco, a business impact. So closures really speak volumes here. Despite the plaza's modern design and strong tenant mix, it's seen the closures of both Cora's Breakfast and Denny's, which are nationally recognized and typically successful franchises. This reflects the very real economic impact with limited access on tenant sustainability. Engineering solutions support the parkway expansion. Even with planned expansion of Wayne Gretzky Parkway to 3 lanes in each direction, With modern traffic engineering, we should be able to accommodate a safe right-in turn lane into the plaza. With proper design, there should be no conflict between both the growth and access, that they both can coexist. There's absolutely zero financial burden on the city. The property owner is covering all the costs related to the access. There's zero financial impact to city, while the community benefits from an improved circulation and economic vitality. And at the same time now, we're going to be boosting local services. As I mentioned, Cora's and Denny's have closed in that area, and Chuck's Roadhouse is going in. Chuck's has a very, very successful operation currently right now in the second ward at King George Road. And I do believe that with this road, they should have more success happening in that area as well. So this improved access strengthens the viability of local businesses, helps retain and attract tenants, supports jobs and services for Brantford and Brant County. A small infrastructure chain can yield major long-term community benefits. And I hope everybody supports this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. I have a number of speakers on the list. I have Councilor Sless, Councilor Hunt, Councilor Van Tilburg. Councilor Sless, you're next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'll be supporting this. I think it's long overdue. It probably, in my opinion, should have been built with an entrance in the beginning. But it wasn't. Again, in my opinion, I don't think it affects traffic flow. It's right in. There's no exit from Gretzky Parkway. There's simply cars exiting off of Gretzky onto this property. If you're from out of town, you wouldn't know how to get on this plaza. You wouldn't know. You've got to go down a street and then make a right-hand turn, and then you'll find an entrance about a half a block down the street to get in. So it's very confusing. I think, as Councilor Caputo said, a number of businesses have closed. And it's not because they were bad businesses or poorly run businesses. It's people couldn't reach them. It's a very confusing site. It's gone on for a long time, and I think it's time to correct it. So I'll be supporting this, and I would certainly encourage all members of council to support this right-in only. It's backed up by a traffic study by traffic engineers saying that this is appropriate. It causes there's nothing detrimental about it. It'll actually take cars off Gretzky Parkway. So I think it's a good idea, and I would encourage everybody to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Sless. Councilor Hunt.
Thank you, and through you to staff. This property is located in Ward 4, and I believe we got an email from the owner, which was also copied to staff. And I'm wondering if staff have already reviewed this request, and if so, what staff's recommendation was.
So through the chair to the counselor, yes, we did. So as you recall, this request did come in back in July, and staff did provide a response back to the owner of the plaza. However, this is not the first conversation that staff have had with the owner of this plaza with respect to a right-in access. Staff's position on this is while we recognize that there may be concerns from the tenants within this plaza, this is a controlled access roadway, meaning that this is essentially the city's largest people and traffic mover within the city. A controlled access highway is the purpose of that, and its planned function is to limit access points along that corridor so that we can effectively move traffic today, but that we can effectively plan for the traffic that we anticipate in the future. City staff are of the opinion that we want to limit access points along that road, and we have various policies in place, whether it be in the official plan or the transportation master plan, to prohibit access points so that these don't become constraints in the future. Our PW group is planning for an EA to look at the road widening of Wayne Gretzky Parkway to accommodate future traffic. And we want to ensure that we have limited access points along that corridor because these will be constraints to widening in the future. Also, it is of note that there is a multi-use path that runs along this corridor that will be bisected by a right-in access point. We feel that the access point is too close to the intersection. While I respect that there was a transportation report done, that was not done in consultation with city staff. We did not provide a terms of reference or recommendations or points to review. So I think from a staff perspective, it's poor planning to allow for a right-in at this access point, and we're not in support.
Thank you for that, Nicole. And so, first of all, if you are trying to get to it from out of town and you enter 195 Henry Street into your Google map, it is going to take you to 195 Henry Street, which is the entrance into the plaza on Henry Street. For me, who drives this road quite often, I think this is an accident waiting to happen. We already have significant backups at Morton Ave with people trying to bypass the construction that has been happening for I don't even know how long on the Gretzky Parkway Bridge. And the other concern, other than the fact that it does, as Nicole has indicated, it's going to cross right over a multi-use pathway, is that I believe the bus already goes into the plaza. And so the people that are trying to, or if not into the plaza, at least to Bosworth and Henry. So the people that are trying to access the government offices that are located within the building already have bus routes that drop them off right there. So I don't believe they need an access from Gretzky Parkway into that particular plaza. So unfortunately, as the ward councillor, I can't support it. 195 Henry Street, they could put a great big flashing light up on their property that says to enter 195 Henry Street, turn right at the next light on Henry Street.
Thank you. Just in time. Thank you. Councilman Tilburg.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I'm coming down Wayne Gretzky, I'm coming down the hill, and I'm looking at that plaza, and all I can say is a hard no. No way would I want to have an exit off the highway and into that plaza. That is poor planning. And I mean, Wayne Gretzky, if anything's taken a heck of a lot of time. It was one of our highest accident ratio locations on Wayne Gretzky and Henry Street. And that whole area has been analyzed and done to the point that it's no longer our number one traffic accident location. So when all of a sudden you're going to take a highway, what is essentially, you know, the throughway of Wayne Gretzky, and start changing traffic patterns into an area that, quite frankly, is very different from the Costco runoff. The Costco runoff goes a long ways, takes traffic in deep. I don't think you're going to take traffic in deep into that plaza. I think you're going to take traffic in, and they're going to start looking for where to turn and where to go next. And the next thing you know, we're going to have backup and problems and rear enders. With that being said, I believe that the Wayne Gretzky is going to have to be expanded into 6 lanes. And all of that has been done through the traffic studies and traffic master plans that were done with Costco. And if I recall, Costco had a heck of a time trying to get all of its wants and needs to get into the spot that they're in. So I do know that the MTO has long tentacles. And I'm not sure if those tentacles actually reach out as far on the Wayne Gretzky as, say, they did towards Costco, because I've heard that they get as far as some of the other hardware stores up by the Gretzky. But if the MTO, my question to staff is, if this has to be referred to by the MTO and staff doesn't approve of it, even though it's been passed by council, is it dead in the water? Would that be fair to say?
So through the chair to the counselor, I believe this was within the MTO permitting area. We would definitely circle MTO. They would have been circulated on the initial site plan when this was approved back in 2007 or sooner. But an MTO permit is generally required, and that is correct. A council may approve an access point. However, if MTO won't release a permit, then there will be no access point granted.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say that, I think I go to every business and have taken vehicles into that plaza for mechanical repairs. I've been to all the restaurants that have existed there at any point in time. And even of the ones that were mentioned, I can say this, it wasn't that they weren't busy. They were busy. I mean, I'm in there eating with crowds of people, and I'm kind of more or less going, wow, why did this place no longer stay? That was more puzzling to me than thinking, oh, it was empty, and I understand why. So, you know, the access down on Henry Street is a very controlled access. If you look at the traffic that comes in and out of there and the reasons why, it's actually a significant amount of traffic. And that's not an amount of traffic that I would want diverted straight off of Wayne Gretzky, slowing down and backing up. So keeping it on Henry Street, keeping it at the controlled intersections where we have multiple lanes to deal with it, rights, lefts, controlled lights. And quite frankly, that plaza is busy. And I can't, I just, like I said, the hard no, I don't think it's wise at all. And quite frankly, it's not supported by staff.
Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg. Councilor Samwell.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said tonight. And I think that's something that I just wanted to mention, that our staff are very knowledgeable. They're saying it's not a good idea. And so I'm going to support the staff decision, and I'm going to vote no to this.
Quick and succinct. Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair. I would actually like to move a referral, looking for a seconder back to staff to come back with a report on this.
Have a seconder?
I don't think all of us had a first speaking opportunity.
Okay, we'll bring it back to you after we have the speaking opportunity, one each. Okay, I'll come back to you. Mayor Davis.
Yeah, I thought I'd help a little bit in the sense of some historical background here. But first of all, I'd say I always generally try to work with all of the ward councilors and Ward 2 councilors. Being a previous Ward 2 councilor, I do my best to work with you. But on this one, I got a bit of a problem. And it goes back to Costco. And here's the hidden untold story. Well, I think most of you know it. And it was, you remember Costco was on the other side of the highway, where Pure Foods is now, BASF. And we were encouraging, all the executives were up here from South Carolina. There was a day-long meeting at City Hall. We were trying to convince them to go to north of the highway, just made more sense. And they were resistant. And basically it came up to, we'll consider it if we can have direct access off the Wayne Gretzky Parkway. And that became the key decision. And that was a difficult one because staff did not want there to be any kind of exit from the Wayne Gretzky Parkway because it's a limited access highway. So traffic can move along quite efficiently. And it came down to the Ministry of Transportation because the staff are quite right. They have the right to say no. Anything between, I believe it's Henry Street and Fairview. And that the issue there was satisfying the Ministry of Transportation. I'll tell you, it was very, very difficult. Involved a lot of influence from even as high up as the Premier's office to get the thing moving. And it really came down to them agreeing to rebuild the exit ramp, which we're now seeing. And that the two are all very interrelated. And so that's the kind of work and effort that goes into to get that. And certainly that got us Costco. And certainly that should not be seen as a precedent for this. And that was only done after staff weighed in, the engineers weighed in, MTO weighed in at 3 different levels. And I'm concerned that we not have a resolution passed that approves this exit from the Wayne Gretzky Parkway, which probably the Minister of Transportation won't approve anyways. So I certainly can support a referral. I think we need to have, to do this properly, we need to have a staff report that sets out exactly what needs to be done, what boxes have to be ticked to have this even seriously considered by us, considering the traffic experts, but also the Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm just going to quickly weigh in. The concern I have with the resolution, it says to consider and approve. How do you consider and approve? You're approving it. You know, you're not considering it, you're considering it and approving it at the same time without background information. So I agree that some background information from staff is appropriate. Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, wanted to refer this back to staff to have a proper staff report done on this. Obviously, Mayor Davis is my seconder, so.
Time? One cycle?
Yeah, one cycle.
So the referral is for one cycle. Do you agree with that as a seconder? Okay, we have agreement. Okay, call the question on referral.
The referral carries on a recorded vote of 7-4. All those voting in favor are Councillor Sullivan, Slash, McCreary, Hunt, Carpenter, Martin, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Secoli, Caputo, Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
Okay, thank you. Now moving on, Councillor Hunt, this is 8.6, review of deputy mayor appointment. Please
Thank
bring
you.
your resolution forward and name your seconder.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McCreary. Whereas the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford is composed of 10 elected councillors and 1 head of council being the mayor. And whereas the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford held a strategic planning setting session on January 28, 2023. And whereas the #1 ranked strategic theme that came out of that session was develop strategies to build trust amongst council while evolving the corporate culture. The strategic theme was rewritten. It was previously develop a process that will improve decision-making and transparency. And whereas on August 1st, 2025, Mayor Davis appointed Councillor Secoli as Deputy Mayor for External Relations. And whereas Mayor Davis cited Section 284.6, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act as the authority for the appointment of a deputy mayor. And whereas Section 284.6 subsection 1 of the Municipal Act reads as follows. Subject to the subsection 3, the powers of the municipality with respect to determining the organizational structure of the municipality are assigned to the head of council. And whereas the subsequent sections of section 284.6, sections 2 through 6, relate specifically to the organizational structure of the municipality from a municipal staff perspective. And whereas the City of Brantford organizational structure chart is not inclusive of council. And whereas section 284.1 of the Municipal Act reads as follows. Without limiting sections 9, 10, and 11, those sections authorize a municipality to provide for a review or an appeal of a decision made by a person or a body in the exercise or intended exercise of power or the performance or intended performance of a duty delegated to him or her. Whereas section 224 of the Municipal Act outlines the role of council, whereas section 225 of the Municipal Act outlines the role of the head of council, and whereas section 226 of the Municipal Act outlines the substitution of the head of council. And whereas section 15.1.1 of the City of Brantford procedural bylaw defines the acting mayor in accordance with section 242 of the Municipal Act. And whereas the City of Brantford bylaw 163-22, Mayor of the Month, has not been amended. And whereas the previous term of council passed bylaw 152-2019 and subsequently repealed it in favor of bylaw 41-2020, both of which address the appointment of an acting mayor pursuant to section 242 of the Municipal Act. And whereas the decision to appoint a deputy mayor was not put before council for consideration, and whereas the appointment of a deputy mayor is a fundamental change in the composition of council, and whereas the appointment of one member of council out of 10 elected members of council has the perception that the one member of council that was appointed as deputy mayor was more qualified than the other 9 members of council. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report to council that outlines the following. 1, the date that the appointment of a deputy mayor was deemed necessary. 2, the selection criteria, education, experience, and qualifications that were considered necessary for the position of deputy mayor. 3, when the deputy mayor was advised of this appointment. 4, the exact duties of the deputy mayor, including what stakeholder relations are being assigned. 5, the resources available to the deputy mayor with respect to staff, facilities, and allocated discretionary budget. 6, an interpretation of section 225, 226, 242, and 284 of the Municipal Act with respect to the appointment of a deputy mayor, with the support of both the Integrity Commissioner and or the Ombudsman as necessary. So I guess we're on 7, an interpretation of the City of Brantford bylaw 163-2022 with respect to the appointment of a deputy mayor. And 8, a jurisdictional scan of the process to appoint a deputy mayor in comparable municipalities. And 2, that the report come back to council in October of 2025. And if I could speak to it with my eye watering that I can't read now. Anybody up here? I'm not crying. My eyes just water at certain times. So I just wanted to speak to it. I wanted to bring forth this resolution primarily because our strategic priority number 1 was to instill trust amongst members of council. And I felt that this information was necessary to be available to the public. I want to make it clear to everyone that's either reached out to any member of council and asked questions that the 9 other members of council received the same deputy mayor memo as all staff did. And it was 12 minutes before they're released to the public on August the 1st, which I'll note was the Friday of a long weekend. I believe the mayor had ample opportunity in advance of the decision to have dialogue with council as a whole regarding the need for a deputy mayor to be appointed. Unfortunately, this left 9 councillors with the inability to adequately answer constituent questions, leaving us a basic response of, I have no idea. Which to me is not an adequate response to be able to provide a constituent that asks a question. We do have precedent in the prior term of council with the same mayor and the chair of 2 bylaws that have addressed this very same issue, being 2 bylaws with respect to an acting mayor. So this resolution is a call for a review of the process to equally inform all members of council on how we got here. So I would ask my council colleagues to support the resolution. And I want to also note that item 8.4, and somehow I got left to the end of the meeting, but item 8.4, leveling the playing field in respect to transparency and accountability, I think can also be noted here. And so with that, I hope that the rest of council will support this review. And Councillor McCreary, was the seconder, and I believe he has a minor amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I have speaking order. I have Davis, Les, Martin, and McCurry. Mayor Davis.
Hope you'll allow me to put 2 4-minute speaking opportunities. If I want, I have a lot to say. But first and foremost, what I want to say is that, I don't disagree with the resolution and getting further information, further transparency, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about what other cities have done with deputy mayors, and all of that precedes strong mayor legislation. I don't think anybody's done it since strong mayor legislation. Quick review of the relevant sections of the municipal act, an explanation for my reasoning given this particular direction, and then an apology I'd like to make to you, council residents. But first of all, there is the municipal act. The municipal act, it's the Bible. It sets out the rules that apply to us as municipal councillors and what we can or can't do. And I got to tell you, there's nothing in the municipal act about deputy mayors. Nothing. However, some cities have deputy mayors, but they're all over the map as to how they do it and what the rules are. For example, Burlington has a deputy mayor of ceremonial for emergencies appointed by the mayor at the beginning of the term. It also provides for potential other portfolios as established by the mayor. Ajax has the mayor appointing a deputy mayor. Middlesex and Thames Center, they've created the position of deputy mayor, and people are elected to it. You have Oakville, which has a monthly rotational system of deputy mayors similar to us. You have London that has a deputy mayor for 2-year terms selected by the mayor, confirmed by council. You have Markham and Richmond Hill, they're lower tier municipalities and regional municipalities, and you can run for both council and regional council in those situations. And so the councillors that get elected as regional councillors, they become the deputy mayors of the councils. And then you have Toronto. Toronto has like about 5 or 6 deputy mayors, and they all have different portfolios. There's kind of external relations. There's one for jobs, there's one for housing, and they're all appointed by the mayor. So it's all over the map because there really are no rules. So the municipal act, what is there that deals with these issues? Well, first off, there are 2 sections, 242 and 23.1, and what they say is, if you're going to be appointing someone to sign legal documents when the mayor can't, that's 23.1, council does that. It also says if you're looking at who can replace the mayor when a mayor can't do a council meeting or a committee meeting, council does that. And that's why the direction that I prepared said very clearly that what I was doing respected that. In fact, 163, or bylaw 163, says council decides who signs legal documents in my absence. Council decides who replaces me at the head of council if I can't attend a council meeting. That's not in dispute. That has been protected. And it's interesting. You may think 163 says mayor of the month for events. It doesn't. We have nothing in policy or bylaw that says mayor of the month. It's just a protocol that's developed over time. So what are we left with? Well, we're left with, I think you look at what are the actual roles that are given to a mayor. There's 2 roles I'm given. 224 says I'm the head of council. That's the legislative function. And in there's various responsibilities, one of which is to do official functions. Like if the Queen comes here, Remembrance Day, that's an official function. Then I have an administrative executive responsibility as the chief executive of this corporation. That's separate from my role here as head of council. And there's a separate section of the Municipal Act that says when I'm acting in that administrative executive capacity, and it's there in the act, I act as a representative of the municipality both within and outside the municipality and promote the municipality both locally, nationally, and internationally. So that's an administrative executive duty that's given to me.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
the
Mayor.
way-
I'll put you back on for a second speaking opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
You cut me off, so I have 2 separate ones?
We all have 2 separate ones.
Okay, thanks.
Next, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're having a debate over whether to receive information or not. That's what the resolution is asking for, is information. And I support that. I think that's a good idea. I think we should have clarity and we should know exactly what all this meant. But we're debating it prior to the report coming forward. The report will come forward if we pass this motion to ask for information. So I'll be supporting this and simply to get the information. And at that point, I think I, for one, will be more enlightened on how to debate. Right now, I'm speculating on what I'm saying. I would like the report in front of me before I do that. I would hope others would do the same because we're debating something that's not really on the floor. What's on the floor is, do we want this report from staff or not? So I'll be supporting getting the information from staff, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting the resolution as well for two main reasons. The first one being that I found out about this when I was called by a resident asking what it was about. Unfortunately, I was busy that day. I hadn't seen the email yet. And I get a call and I was caught completely off guard because I had no idea what the person was even talking about. Something like this, usually we would get the courtesy of at least advance notice from the mayor, if not consultation. And consultation brings me to the second point, which is the mayor's resolution, two resolutions ago talked about leveling the playing field. And here, 1 year before an election, he elevates one councillor to the position of deputy mayor. In his own dissertation about other communities' deputy mayors and how they come about, several times he said appointed at the beginning of the term. Well, this is 1 year before an election, so it's not an appropriate time to do that unless he picks somebody who isn't going to be running in the next election. And that has been the precedent in other things before. If a mayor is unable to finish his term and we have to elect someone from council, a lot of times they're asked to promise that they won't run in the next election in order to be eligible to be considered to take over the mayor's chair. So I really don't think that Councilor Coley is going to promise not to run in the next election. I would be amazed if that came up. So I fully expect Councilor Coley will run in the next election. So it's totally inappropriate for the mayor to name her 1 year before an election, then elevate her to deputy mayor, which completely goes against his whole argument two resolutions ago.
I may interrupt. Could we keep the discussion to this is about getting information about the process? Could we, I want to keep the personalities out of it if I can, and just talk about the process, if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay. So I think getting the information from staff, part of that might be that it was inappropriate to do this 1 year before an election. So once we get the information, then we'll have a better idea of what's going on with this. But I'll definitely be supporting the resolution on the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor McCurry. I understand you have an amendment, but I'll come back to you after we've had everybody speaking, if you don't mind.
Okie dokie. So first, let me say I was very flattered when Councilor Hunt asked me to be the seconder. I looked at the resolution and it was well written, and I see that it really incorporates some of the questions I've heard in the community, which has been said before. I really was unable to offer answers for. A lot has been said about it. I'm not going to debate this. I'm reminded of a comment that a gentleman with whom I've worked for these past 2 decades has said quite often, that he would always support getting more information. I'm looking at that gentleman right now. There he is in the chair. And I'm going to heed that tonight. And I sure hope that everybody in this room is going to vote in favor of this. Okay. There's no reason not to. It will demonstrate to the community that we're unanimous in being, what was the highlight? What was the title of the mayor's previous resolution? Unlocking equity through transparency and accountability. I think that speaks volumes to what we're debating right now.
Thanks, Councilor McCurry. Councilor Foley of the Soul.
Thank you. A little bit of an uncomfortable topic for me, but I will begin by saying that I was incredibly humbled and glad to be asked and given the opportunity to serve as deputy mayor for external relations, a role that I gladly accepted without any extra authority, despite what people may think.
no additional compensation, no additional staff support or anything like that. It was simply an opportunity to support our city by assisting the mayor in external matters, building relationships, listening to our partners, and representing Brantford when called upon. These are all tasks that I was doing anyway. To be quite frank, on topics that I took an interest in learning more about, and it was just a really easy, natural fit, I do believe. And I will say that the title does help, the title being Deputy Mayor for External Relations, not just Deputy Mayor, but the title does help give me, at the very least, a perceived authority when I'm in certain rooms, like the Ontario Big City Mayors, when I'm sitting around that table, having that title. It helps. It helps give me some clout and, like I said, that perceived authority. This is a working title. It's not a rewriting of the Municipal Act or our bylaws. It's the mayor has the right to designate a councillor for special responsibilities, as other mayors do. And it doesn't change or alter the Mayor of the Month system. I think that was made clear. But understanding that government relations needs consistency. It's not something you can rotate through 10 different people to show up depending on what the month is. It's something you have to be able to be consistent. You have to be able to build and foster relationships in the long term. And I think that was, I feel like I have an understanding of that's what the intention was here with this role. However, this resolution, I think, puts staff in a really awkward position. But I do, I am open to the transparency of a report coming forward. I'm pretty sure that it will, I'm confident actually that it will confirm everything that we've said today, that this role it's symbolic, it's supportive, and it's entirely in service to my community and to our city of Brantford. But I am suspecting that this will likely pass. I would like to offer a small amendment, and hopefully it'll be just taken on as friendly, but everywhere in here that it says Deputy Mayor, I would like that to be changed as Deputy Mayor of External Relations, because that's what the role is. It's the wrong title that's listed in here over and over again, so I would like to make sure that staff are even looking into the correct thing.
I'll accept that as just correction.
A correction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Savoli. Councilor Samuel.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. First off, I want to say that I appreciate Councillor Hunt bringing this forward. I know many residents have questions about the process, and I believe that this review is an opportunity to provide clarity and transparency. So I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Samuel. Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for staff. Clerk, if you could, does a strong mayor power allow the mayor to make a decision such as this without consultation to council?
Councilor Caputo, that's the subject matter of the resolution, to ask staff to come back with that answer. It would be unfair for them to try and answer that question without doing some research.
Never mind.
Sorry, I just that it would be okay.
I just wanted to get some clarity on that, because
I think that's the subject of the resolution.
so the entire resolution really is whether or not the mayor has strong mayor powers to make a decision such as this without consultation to staff.
Right.
So I had to read through this entire motion, which could have been written in one resolution. Just the one item. That's all I'm asking. Okay.
There's been longer resolutions, by the way. I think Councillor Van Tilburg, sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of words on this page, and I was just gonna let them sit as Councillor Hunt explained them with such clarity. And then as the discussion came along, I just need to clarify part of that discussion. So the title actually is Review of the Deputy Mayor Appointment. The context of it states the status of what the deputy mayor was covering in the text of the body of the content. And so finding out through the debate that there could be more than one deputy mayor, right? I was a little puzzled by that when I heard that other cities actually had 2, 3, 4, that you could have deputy mayor of external relations, deputy mayor of industrial design, and like that. Who knows what the next need for a deputy mayor was. So I'm thinking that the title is review of a deputy mayor appointment, because that's what we're dealing with. The context is here. And so I'm assuming that the report is really not on the context of the deputy mayor of external relations, but the fact of the deputy mayor appointment in any context. That's what I'm assuming the resolution is about. Would that be accurate or not? I'm asking staff for that. That if this went through, that it's really just will cover a reply on deputy mayor appointments, whether it's external relations or what.
Councilor Blanchard, if I may, the resolution is really asking staff to review the strong mayor's powers to see if the process is doable in the first place, I believe. And to report back on what those duties would be as the other parts of the resolution.
Very complex. As you have my question, so I'm hoping it comes back in the report.
Great. I'm just trying to, this is a very delicate subject. Further comments? Do I have any, did I have an amendment? Councilor McCurry, you have an amendment?
Mayor, yes, it would add a final bullet point.
Did you say mayor? No.
Sorry, deputy mayor. Sorry, chair. Chair Carpenter, sorry, not mayor. Not yet. Yeah, the amendment would be that additionally we seek the minutes of the quarterly meetings of the Ontario Big City Mayors Association for the years 2024 and 2025. And hopefully the mover would consider that to be friendly.
I heard her say that it was, so it's on the floor, speaking to this amendment. You want to speak to the amendment? Okay. It's friendly, okay. Any others speak to this resolution? It was a friendly amendment. Okay. I'm gonna call the vote. Oh, does somebody want to speak to it? Oh, Mayor Davis, sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue, but other than to say, I think I have the power even without strong merit, but that we'll see when the amendment. What I wanted to say is that this was really driven by just by way of explanation, very briefly, Mr. Chair, that after the Trump situation, we talked a little bit about this evening, the amount of external work I had like almost quadrupled. The Great Lakes City Mayors Initiative, OBCM, which is probably the most important organization I belong to, its workload doubling and tripling in subcommittees and AMO and FCM in the spring, I missed an FCM meeting, and Councilor Sicoli, she jumped in on 2 days' notice because I had to attend a police services board hire. And then I missed an OBCM meeting that was critical on the trade situation in June because we were opening the Ferrero expansion here and the premier was here. Plus I was having some health issues, which I seem to have on an annual basis. And I was really concerned about being overextended, needing help. Councilor Sicoli has had an interest in that. She's been to AMO 3 times. She knows a lot of cabinet ministers. I was in a difficult situation. I needed help. I needed it fast. And the deputy mayor was really more a title. There's no power. She has no power. She's just there to help me. And it's really because in the OBCM, they do not want councillors attending OBCM meetings. They want it to be mayors or essentially deputy mayors. And it was really to give Councilor Sicoli some credibility or authority, whatever, in terms of dealing with OBCM or cabinet ministers. And as it turned out, little did I know that 2 days before AMO, I'd be in the emergency department being fed morphine and just being told, no way you're going to AMO. And fortunately, it turned out to, I think, to benefit the city. But all that aside, I made an error. In the way that I communicated it, I had just coming back from the Yukon where I'd injured myself, and I wanted to get it done because I knew AMO was coming up. But that was a mistake. And I apologize to my fellow council members and residents. There was a better way to do it. I should have done it that way, and I apologize to you. It should have been done in a more transparent method rather than getting it through quickly, which as events turned out, it actually worked to our benefit. But I apologize for that. There was a better way to do it, and I should have done it that way. And probably if there's any other, probably error that I made, you know, whether it had to be deputy mayor or not, that's a good question because, you know, being described as a mayor's designate for external relations probably would give that, someone helping me the authority and to be able to go to OBCM and talk to cabinet ministers. So it was really not knowing how to describe a position that's really not a traditional deputy mayor's position. If you look at what other cities have done. So I was scrambling. I knew I had to do something. I had to do it quickly with AMO coming up and OBCM and a full calendar of this fall of Great Lakes Mayor trade initiatives, OBCM. It just is really snowballing. So I say that and I'm quite happy to support the resolution. What I'm hoping actually comes out of it is at the end result for the next council, because the mayor needs more help. Not just mayor of the month, but a consistent presence that helps him or her with external relationships. That the next mayor, the next council will have a process that's better designed to give the mayor some assistance with these outsourced organizations. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess, do you want to speak, Councilor Clute, the second time? Go ahead.
So, we're gonna be awaiting an outcome for this, but I do want to make a comment. I appreciate the mayor apologizing for not speaking out or at least having a reference. Because that was really the only issue I had with any of this. And the reason I say that is because at the end of the day, if I'm in a position of having that autonomy and where it's going, I want to align myself with somebody who's 100% aligned with me. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to have a conversation amongst 10 councillors and the mayor. If that would be the case, then it wouldn't be where we're at with we are today. So I certainly am awaiting staff to come back with something, but I just wanted to that would be how I would approach it. I certainly would have had a conversation, but if I'm appointing someone to be the deputy mayor or whatever you want to refer to it as, it's going to be someone who's aligned 100% with what I expect that individual to do in my absence, because that's all this is really doing. In your absence, not sending them off on foreign trips, not doing this, not doing that. In my absence, I want somebody who's completely aligned with the way I think and what I want presented. So can't wait to see what comes back.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. I would just say this as a long-serving councillor. There are all kinds of opportunities to appoint deputy mayors, assistants, mayor of the month, whatever. You always go through your council. Mayors don't speak for council, they speak with council. That's the way it should be. And I know that the deputies, the new mayor's powers that the premier has expounded on all mayors in Ontario has caused some confusion. I'm sure it has. Something I think is anti-democratic, but it is what it is. And if we're going to have a deputy mayor in the future, maybe it should be part of the structure before the next election so people know what they're voting for. And they know that this is a process. We want to be transparent. Let's put a process in place. Well, let's review it. And let's not blame the individuals involved or Councilor Coley. It's unfair. The process happened and we want to know, is this the right way to do this? Is there a better way to do this? And I think we all think that we want to have better conversation and a better way to do it. We have the Lord Mayor, we had a Deputy Mayor, I think in Council, Ward 2, Councillor Utley, and that came to a vote of council. So there's ways to do it. So let's thank you for the discussion on this. This was probably a difficult topic, but I'm glad that we were having it. Thank you. I'll call the question. The member must be friendly.
And item 8.6 carried on a recorded vote of 10-1. All those voting in favor are Councillor Sullivan, Celeste, McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Martin, Caputo, Mayor Davis. Those opposed, Councillor Scully.
We have one notice of motion. Councillor Samuel, will you please read the title of your notice of motion?
Thank you. Creating awareness for gender-based violence through public spaces.
Okay, and that brings us to, and then, notice the motion deadline for council agenda is, Thursday, August 24th. I don't think so. It might be September 21st. I want to thank members of council for a very respectful and cordial discussion